Chapter 485. Could it be another arrangement? Gu Fei and Sword Demon looked at each other and thought. The Han family young master's thoughts were hard to guess, but compared to this, it was even harder to get his true intentions out of his mouth. The two of them could only stand guard in front of the hole, looking at each other and waiting patiently. Not long after, something unexpected happened. The players guarding outside the woodshed suddenly became noisier than before, as if something had happened. Come and look. Sword Spectre, who was observing the situation from the hole, hurriedly called out to Gu Fei and gave him a spot to observe the situation as well. With the noise, the other side clearly began to move, and many people began to return to the front yard along the way. What happened? Gu Fei looked at Sword Demon, puzzled. It's probably the arrangement that young master mentioned? Sword Demon said. What did he arrange this time? Gu Fei scratched his head. I don't know, but in short, it was as he expected. Sword Demon said. When will this guy make a mistake? Gu Fei said resentfully. Human's mood was subtle. Although at this time, if the Han family young master made a mistake, it would be a disaster for Gu Fei and Sword Demon. This guy always calculated everything, and it couldn't help but strongly stimulate the reverse psychology of humans. Gu Fei really wanted to see how this guy would react after making a fatal disaster-type mistake, even if this mistake would cost him. However, it seems that not all of them have left. Sword Demon announced bad news. This is normal, Gu Fei said. No matter what kind of trick the other side used, they won't completely give up on us. 2 turtles in a jar, right? But now I'm afraid this is our only chance, Sword Demon said. So charge, Gu Fei said. Yes. Sword Demon nodded. Don't get caught up in the fight. Pull away from them as fast as you can and try to get over the wall. Gu Fei wasn't worried about the Sword Demon's speed. He was only worried that he wouldn't be agile enough to climb the wall and would be knocked down. Understood, said the Sword Demon. Okay. Gu Fei reached out and pulled the broken door of the woodshed. At this time, in the front yard of the government compound, or more accurately, at the front yard gate, a real battle broke out. This time, it wasn't some fake harassment, but a genuine attack from a guild that didn't see eye to eye. Where there were people, there would be conflicts. A guild without disputes meant that it was an inconspicuous passerby guild. It was impossible for one of the top guilds in Xia Fog City to not have any enemies. This was something that Han family young master had already found out from Strange Eye. So this time, his strategy wasn't to spread out like in Waterside City, but to find a target and attack. The method was the same. Han family young master still sent a letter with 1 gold coin to the core members of these hostile guilds. If he just randomly said that there was a loophole in the government compound, and that they were welcome to visit, the other party might ignore it as a prank. However, the tone of the Han family young master's letter was very different. It was like the tone of the group that had caused a ruckus 2 days ago. The content of the letter was even more unscrupulous, revealing his understanding of the operation that day, making it impossible for anyone to doubt his identity. Following that, there was only one theme. We are going to cause a ruckus soon. You are welcome to come and cause a ruckus together. The news that the government compound had been tormented by someone a few days ago had already spread throughout Xiaoyu City. The young master of the Han family believed that these fools must have felt regretful that they hadn't taken advantage of the situation that day. Since that day, they had strengthened their defenses. The more they saw it, the more regretful they felt. And now, this letter from the Han family young master was equivalent to giving them a pill of regret, giving them another chance. Of course, it was impossible for the guilds to attack so recklessly. They needed time to see if it was really as the letter said. Therefore, the Han family young master found extras like Strange Pupil, as well as the 2 main characters, Gu Fei and Sword Demon. The consequences of their actions would fall into the eyes of these guilds. There was only one truth that appeared in their eyes. Foggy Eyes was indeed being harassed again. A chance. The people who were the most unwilling to let go of an opportunity were often the people who had missed an opportunity before. Since the letter had been confirmed, there was nothing to hesitate about. They should seize the opportunity and do it. Therefore, the formal battle between guilds officially began. Foggy Eyes had just thought that the harassment from the guilds was a misunderstanding, But suddenly, he realized that there were really guilds attacking, and they were all characters that were not on good terms with their own guilds. While he was surprised, he could not help but sigh. Why are these old opponents so smart today? Both real and fake. The guild leader of Foggy Eyes, 3 Sighs of Flowing Maple, was still washing his face. When he heard the news, he could not care less about cleanliness and rushed to the front yard. How could there be so many lines of dialogue when the two sides that had never been on good terms met? At this time, they had already become one. A large portion of Foggy Eyes' manpower had been placed in the broken woodshed in the backyard. The situation was extremely unfavorable, and it was necessary to send reinforcements as soon as possible. There was no need to think too much. Therefore, the defense of the woodshed in the backyard loosened just like that. How could the two sides that were fighting in the front yard know that in their desperate battle, some people were actually hiding such a small goal? The moment Gu Fei opened the door to the woodshed, he had already sent out a high-damage sword skill with double flame flash. As he expected, there was someone blocking the door. With such a sword skill, a small empty space was immediately cleared. Following that, Sword Demon valiantly rushed out, using the level-skipping skill Misty Ambush. With high speed and strong impact, it was even more ferocious than the most terrifying skill Charge in a straight line. Once the skill was used, Sword Demon rushed out in a straight line, and in the blink of an eye, he was already out of the circle. The surrounding players turned their heads in shock, but what greeted them was fire. Gu Fei had already teleported behind Sword Demon, and at this time, he could act as a cover. The fire spread out, and there was another small empty space. Gu Fei then pointed at his feet. 1,000 layers of flames of the cinder tree rise. He loudly chanted. Dodge. The two turned around and ran. Fuck. It's fake. The crowd that was startled by the 1,000 layers of flames of the cinder tree shouted, and wanted to chase after them when they saw the fire. We've been told countless times that people who don't understand Gu Fei's magic will suffer greatly. Everyone had thought that the skills were fake, but as soon as they stepped onto this land, they suddenly discovered that it was already a land of fire. The flames were more intense than anything they had ever seen before. Characters with weak health could only become a speck of white light in the midst of the flames. On the other hand, Gu Fei and the Sword Ghost, who were known for their speed, were already running several meters away. Gu Fei pulled out 2 loops of rope and handed one to Sword Demon. Hold it well. Sword Demon knew that they were pulling away to buy time to climb over the wall, and he clearly needed more time to climb over the wall, so he kept looking back at the distance. When it was about time, he nodded at Gu Fei. It's done. Okay. Gu Fei didn't hesitate. The 2 claws in his hands shot out one after the other, accurately grabbing onto the top of the wall. Go. Gu Fei yelled. He pulled the rope and flew into the air. Sword Demon wasn't as free and easy as him. He ran to the bottom of the wall, pulled the rope tight, and stepped on the wall. The 2 climbed up the wall, one in front and one behind. The enemies on the ground surged over like a tide. Gu Fei's climbing proficiency was far above Sword Demon's. He used all his strength, but when he reached the top of the wall, Sword Demon had only climbed a third of the way up. Seeing the enemies get closer and closer, Gu Fei looked at Sword Demon. He discovered that this kind of top expert in the game didn't have any weaknesses. For example, his mental fortitude was definitely strong enough. If it were the people who came with him the other day, they would have been frightened to the point where they didn't know what to do in the face of such a powerful enemy. If they were faced with such a scene, Gu Fei reckoned that they would have already fallen down from the trembling. Unlike the Sword Ghost, who was still so calm and composed, meticulously climbing up the wall. But calmness was calmness. The enemies were closing in, and it was also a fact that Sword Demon was a bit slow. Several archers had already drawn their bows and started shooting. Hold on. Gu Fei yelled, swinging his hands. Papa! 2 arrows suddenly fell to the ground. The archers could clearly see that the mage on top of the wall had thrown something that actually knocked down their arrows. Damn, it's not that exaggerated. Everyone was stunned. How lucky. I hit 2. Gu Fei muttered in his heart. This was an unexpected performance from Gu Fei. He threw a total of 5 meat-cutting knives. He just wanted to try his luck. After all, the archer's arrows were too fast, and Gu Fei's throwing hidden weapons was too slow, which greatly increased the difficulty of estimating. Gu Fei had no confidence at all. He just wanted to try, but he didn't expect to bet on 2 out of 5. His luck was still good. As for the remaining 3 arrows, he missed one. Sword Demon dodged one arrow and took the other. He was already a step away from the top of the wall. When the second wave of archers came, Gu Fei could reach it with his sword and easily resolved it. Sword Demon grabbed the top of the wall and flipped over. He pulled out the arrow stuck behind him and let out a long sigh. That was close. Let's go. Gu Fei put away the flying hook and placed it on the other end. The two of them calmly slid down. Their infiltration this time had come to an end. As for the guild war in the front yard, it seemed like it had nothing to do with the two of them anymore. What do you think is in that cellar? At this time, the two of them were walking on the street and had already begun to discuss the continuation of their mission. They completely ignored the thousands of people over there who were risking their lives for them. This was the fate of minor characters. I don't know, Gu Fei said. What did a cellar have to do with the assassination of Giordano? Anyway, we won't know anything if we don't open it, Sword Demon said. Where can we find the key? Gu Fei muttered. Shall we go back and touch the sleeping assassin's body? The sword ghost suggested. Is there any other way? Unlock skill. I don't know if anyone knows it right now, Sword Demon said. Chapter 486. Lockpicking skill? Gu Fei repeated Sword Demon's words. And it's a common skill in online games that belongs to the thief class. It specializes in opening locks without keys. The higher the skill level, the more locks you can open. Sword Demon knew that Gu Fei was a noob, so he explained in detail. What about in this game? Gu Fei asked. It's a skill that belongs to the thief class. Sword Demon said. Being a godly thief and picking locks, it really is a good match. Gu Fei said, what? Gu Fei saw that Sword Demon had something to say. Currently, the skills outside of the skill tree are either from equipment or scrolls. I've seen the lockpicking skill scroll once, so it's obvious that it exists on the market. If that's the case, I think that Thin Waist Dance has a high chance of having this skill, Sword Demon said. Gu Fei nodded his head. That makes sense. He thought of Thin Waist Dance, who was so greedy that she even wanted to learn teleportation. If she found a skill scroll for her own class, she definitely wouldn't miss it. Let me ask. Gu Fei said as he immediately sent a message to Thin Waist Dance. Thin Waist, do you know how to unlock? Of course. From these two simple words, Gu Fei felt a wave of pride wash over him. Thin Waist Dance's proud expression seemed to appear in front of him. Then let's unlock. Gu Fei didn't waste any time. Where? Thin Waist Dance didn't hesitate. Fog City. What kind of place is that? A main city. Wait a moment. Where are you? Gu Fei asked. Nonsense, where else could I be? Cloud City. Yeah. Gu Fei couldn't bear to see it. Coming from Cloud City, it was a journey of many hours, just to open a lock. For those who couldn't understand, imagine your house was in Beijing, and the key was locked, so you found a locksmith from Shanghai to open the lock. All right. Before Gu Fei could finish hesitating, Slim Waist Dance sent him another message. What's good? Gu Fei was confused. Go to the mailbox and get a scroll. Thin Waist Dance said. Gu Fei did receive a system notification saying that he had a new mail, but he didn't pay much attention to it. He was now a celebrity in the game, so he would receive letters from strangers from time to time. Most of them were boring, so Gu Fei didn't pay much attention to them anymore. Scroll? A lockpicking scroll? Gu Fei knew that there were two types of skill scrolls. One was the learning type, which allowed one to learn a skill after using it. The other was the consumption type, which allowed one to release a skill after using it. Where did you get the unlock scroll? It's a teleportation scroll, Thin Waist Dance said. Ha! Gu Fei didn't understand. After you get it, record the coordinates over there and send it back to me. Then I can use it to teleport over. Thin Waist Dance said. That works too, Gu Fei exclaimed. Even the Sword Demon had the same reaction. This time, it wasn't that the two of them were ignorant, It was because the teleportation scroll was too high-end. It was just like how commoners wouldn't have any thoughts or intentions towards private planes. So you're saying that she'll be able to come over immediately? Gu Fei and the Sword Demon had already changed their route. Originally, they were going to return to the tavern to discuss their next step, but they didn't expect things to progress so quickly. Don't tell me we're going back immediately? Sword Demon said. That's not a good idea. Gu Fei felt bad for repeatedly interrupting their peaceful life. Let's wait for her to come over first, Sword Demon said. The two of them went to the mailbox to collect the goods. Halfway through, they received a message from the Han family young master. Warriors, are you out yet? I'm out, the two of them replied. What did you find? Han family young master asked. When the Sword Demon said this, the Han family young master immediately said, Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up. Take advantage of the commotion over there and kill them. What did you do to them? Gu Fei and the Sword Demon felt a chill run down their spine. They're in the middle of a guild war. Don't you want to use this chance? Han family young master said. Didn't you say that the guild couldn't be used this time? Gu Fei said. I'm too lazy to explain such complicated things to people with your IQ. Han family young master said. This kind of guild war won't end so quickly, but it won't last until tomorrow. So can you two please hurry up? Han family young master said. Gu Fei and the Sword Demon, who were strolling leisurely on the streets, immediately ran over to the mailbox. They quickly opened it and took out a teleportation scroll. Although the two of them hadn't used it before, with a veteran like Sword Demon, it only took him 3 seconds to figure out how to use it. Do you want to record it here or wait until we enter the woodshed? Sword Demon asked. Gu Fei looked at him in surprise. There's a mailbox in the woodshed? Oh right. Sword Demon was ashamed. Even a wise man would sometimes make a mistake. He quickly recorded the coordinates and sent it back. Hurry up. Gu Fei sent a message to Thin Waist Dance. What are you rushing me for? Thin Waist Dance replied. But as soon as the message was sent, at the coordinates that Sword Demon had just recorded, a white light suddenly shot out from the ground and instantly formed a formation. The light rose up and illuminated the surroundings. The figure of Thin Waist Dance in the center of the light gradually became clear. Hi! As the light of the formation faded, Thin Waist Dance had already stepped out and greeted the two people in front of her. Let's go open the lock. Gu Fei said to her. Why are you in such a hurry? Thin Waist Dance was very calm. She first looked around and said in surprise, What is this place? Gu Fei obviously knew what she was surprised about. This place is like that, it's very foggy. Let's go, we're in a hurry. Why are you in a hurry? Thin Waist Dance said. I'm about to go offline. Gu Fei said. It's not like you'll die if you're late, Thin Waist Dance scolded, but she had already quickened her pace with Gu Fei and Sword Demon. I say, why are you opening the lock? Don't you have a cause and result? Thin Waist Dance questioned on the way. So it was Gu Fei's turn to narrate. Why didn't you call me for such an interesting thing? Thin Waist Dance hit Gu Fei's head. For the top money warriors in the game, equipment, skills, and the like could be easily bought with money, but the faster they obtained them, the faster they would lose interest. If they wanted to maintain their interest in the game, they would need to find satisfaction in other aspects, especially things that couldn't be bought with money. Didn't I ask you to come out as soon as there's trouble? Gu Fei said. That's more like it. What do we do now? Thin Waist Dance asked. We just came out from there. It's very chaotic there. We should be able to sneak in again. Gu Fei said. Is it that courtyard you were talking about? Thin Waist Dance asked. Yes. Thin Waist Dance rarely joined in. Gu Fei and Sword Demon's high speed didn't drag them down, but instead made them drag them down. Along the way, Thin Waist Dance kept urging the two to hurry up, making Gu Fei not know whether to laugh or cry. Why are you running so far ahead? Do you know the way? The three quickly returned to the government compound's wall. Sword Demon purposely sneaked to the front door to take a look, then came back and said excitedly, It's quite a big fight. If we rush in now, no one will care about us. Go. Gu Fei swung his hand and threw a flying hook. Really? Gu Fei looked at Thin Waist Dance and saw her blank expression. He knew that he had to go through another lesson. Fortunately, Slender Waist Dancer wasn't a paper tiger that had only been armed with money and equipment. She had some real skills, so she was able to learn quickly. At the very least, she was better than the members of the Sky Nine. Finally, the three of them had successfully climbed over the wall. Looking into the courtyard, they sucked in a cold breath. The courtyard had already become a fiery battlefield. The three of them were people who had seen large-scale PvP battles before. However, the usual large-scale PvP battles were either in the vast wilderness or in the streets and alleys. At this moment, the limited space in the government compound was like a large arena. The sound of cursing, shouting, weapons clanging, and skills being used was louder and louder. The three of them didn't know which was which and couldn't tell which was better or worse. They could only say one word. So miserable. They didn't have time to look anymore. The three of them went around the wall to the backyard. Looking down, they complained endlessly. It turned out that the flames of war had already spread to this place, and it looked far more crowded and fiery than the front yard. Of course, Gu Fei and the others didn't know the inside story. At the beginning of the guild battle, they were attacking and defending at the front gate. Flowers in the Fog took the initiative to defend, but the situation was slightly disadvantageous for them. Simply put, they were in the open while the enemy was in the dark. The front gate of the courtyard was the boundary between the inside and the outside of the courtyard. The enemy outside the courtyard could hide in the fog by taking a few steps back, but the people inside the courtyard could be clearly seen by the enemy. The specific situation was that when the enemy's frontline combatants were heavily injured, they would quickly retreat into the fog and be out of danger. On the other hand, when the enemy's frontline combatants wanted to retreat in this situation, they would be caught by the enemy's long-range attackers and suffer heavy losses. Helpless, three Sighs of Flowing Maple decided to drag the battle back and let the enemy lose the fog as a barrier. But this time, their opponents had many guilds, and they had an overwhelming advantage in terms of numbers. Losing the defense of the front gate, the situation wasn't looking good for Flowers in the Fog. However, there was a big drawback to carrying out a large-scale PK battle in the front yard, and that was the rigid system NPC guards stubbornly interspersed. Some stood guard, some patrolled. No one knew what exactly happened in the courtyard for them to take action. With the interference of these guards, everyone was a little careful with their attacks. If they accidentally hit the guards, it would be a disaster. And some players with outstanding awareness even consciously lured their opponents' attacks to the guards, and the situation of the battle became extremely complicated. In this kind of situation, everyone subconsciously avoided the guards and fought in the space where there weren't any guards. Thus, as they swayed and swayed, they actually turned the backyard, which had almost no guards, into the main battlefield. Both sides wantonly attacked each other here. Chapter 487. Where do you think we should go? Slender Waist Dance said as she looked at the bustling scene beneath her feet. There. Gu Fei pointed to the woodshed in the corner. Because this was a very rare and high place in the courtyard, everyone was very concerned about this place, and the fight for it was extremely intense. Opportunity? Slender Waist Dance solemnly repeated the word that Gu Fei had emphasized to her before. Gu Fei's expression was tragic, and he didn't say anything. Should we wait? Sword Demon asked for their opinion. At this time it was chaos below. Going down was tantamount to seeking death. No matter how skilled an expert was, they couldn't do anything. Sword Demon had a lot of experience in the game. In this situation, he concluded that if the three of them suddenly appeared without any characteristics of either side, they would definitely be seen as enemies by both sides, and their hatred would be greater than anyone else's. How long do we have to wait? Gu Fei muttered as he watched the battle. If individual challenges were fought back and forth in a few rounds, then team battles wouldn't end so quickly. Due to the cooperation, coordination, and recovery between each person, team battles had always been synonymous with persistence and patience. Whoever lost patience first and messed up the rhythm would be the first to collapse. The situation at first glance seemed to be a mess, but as an organized attack and defense, as well as an organized retreat of the guards to this backyard, everything was carried out in an orderly manner. It wasn't as chaotic as it seemed at first glance. An old veteran like Sword Demon, of course, quickly saw through the trick. He shook his head and sighed. I'm afraid it won't be too soon. Gu Fei looked at the time, and before he could speak, Slender Waist Dance had already shouted at him. If you log off again, I'll push you down. I came all the way here to help you with the mission. Try logging off. When Gu Fei heard this, he agreed. He felt a little bad for running away when he had specially invited a helper over. Gu Fei had always been a person of principle, but frankly speaking, he had already loosened his principle of going offline at midnight during the Traversing the Four Seas expedition. Gu Fei had already gotten used to it. Now that he thought about it, he might as well loosen it once more. Hence, he gave up on the idea of going offline first. Let me see if there's a chance. Gu Fei began to observe the situation below. Although the people below were very focused, the three of them didn't dare to be too arrogant and attract too much attention. At this time, they were all lying on the wall, and each stretched their head out to look. However, Gu Fei really wasn't good at team battles. He couldn't figure out anything even after a long time. Meanwhile, Slim Waist Dancer was a classic example of individual heroism. She didn't know how to write the word team at all. So the two guys pretended to observe and study for a long time, but it was all in vain. In the end, it was Sword Ghost who figured it out. There's a chance. Sword Demon suddenly. What's wrong? The two quickly looked at him. Sword Demon pointed in the direction of the woodshed. That small woodshed can be regarded as a geographical advantage. With such a high point, long-range professions and priests can be more efficient. It has an immeasurable impact on the battle in that area. Then where's our chance? Slender Waist Dance wasn't a slow person. Look, now that the fight for this woodshed is over, their mages, archers, and priests have already occupied the roof. They've already taken the initiative in that area. If the opponent doesn't respond, they can only watch as their side is gradually nibbled away in this area. So they must strengthen their offensive in this area. Before thinking of a way to seize the high point, they must also maintain the balance of this battle. Sword Demon's analysis was clear and logical. Slender Waist Dance listened blankly and asked again, where do you think our chance is? Sword Demon helplessly explained further. When the battle is in a state of stalemate, if something unexpected happens to break the balance, the unprepared side will temporarily fall into chaos due to incompetence in command. We can take advantage of this moment. Slender Waist Dance had completely put on a broken expression. She looked at Gu Fei and said, is he speaking Chinese? Gu Fei looked in the direction Sword Demon. Thinking, he nodded and said, I understand what you mean. The high point of the woodshed is a very prominent advantage that side has. If it's destroyed in an instant, it'll be a very strong break of the balance, right? Sword Demon. He nodded repeatedly. They who are suppressing the opponent with this advantage will definitely collapse in an instant. Slender Waist Dance also understood his intentions and asked, what about the other side? The side that has picked up the advantage won't collapse because they suddenly have the advantage, right? Sword Demon. He smiled. They won't, but they can't be more than happy that we're making a move. Do you think they'll think of making things difficult for us for a while? Even if they're looking at flowers through a fog. You're right, Gu Fei responded. Then let's make a move to break the balance. The position of the woodshed should be able to jump up. Sword Demon. He glanced at Slender Waist Dance. He didn't know if this girl had the courage to jump down from such a high place. Well, that's easy. Slender Waist Dance was indeed not an ordinary woman. Not only did she not know about teamwork, but she also didn't seem to know how to write fear. Will I fall to my death? Gu Fei asked. It's dangerous to land, but as long as I accurately jump to the roof, my HP will only be partially damaged, and I won't fall to my death. Sword Demon. His research on the game was really comprehensive. Only a madman like him would have such detailed research on how much HP could be lost by falling from a certain height. Although the addition of points and class might not be the same, Slender Waist Dance and Sword Demon. They were basically the same profession, so Sword Demon's judgment was also effective on her. As for Gu Fei, Sword Demon. To be cautious, it was better to use teleportation to land. Got it? Gu Fei nodded. Then Qianli will go clear the monsters first, Slender Waist Dance, and I will follow. Sword Demon said, clear monsters? Gu Fei. He looked at him. Sorry, Sword Demon. He knew that he had let the cat out of the bag. You go break the balance first. Gu Fei smiled and patted him. The three of them crouched on top of the wall and approached the woodshed. Fire wheel from the sky. Fall. When they were about to reach the woodshed, Gu Fei suddenly extended his long sword and chanted a spell. He then turned around and said to the two, I'm going. The two nodded. Gu Fei slipped 2 more steps before his spell, which was so slow it was almost hair-raising, condensed in the air. The guys on the ground reacted quickly enough, and immediately noticed that a spell had appeared on the roof of the woodshed. Because they had been paying attention to this phenomenon all the time, they had expected the enemy's long-range professions to use this method to attack them, so they had always been wary of the mages and archers in the area. They wanted to eliminate the hidden danger before it happened. Who would have thought that there would still be such a fish that slipped through the net and secretly cast a spell from a corner? They didn't know that this spell was cast by Gu Fei, who had a higher level, and they didn't know how terrifying the power of this spell was. They just realized that it was just a fire wheel from the sky and faced it very calmly with a smile. But vaguely, the people on the roof seemed to hear a voice from above. Too unrestrained. This was a slip of the tongue of Sword Demon and Slender Waist Dance at the same time. Originally, they shouldn't have spoken at this critical juncture of a surprise attack, but it was difficult for them to vent their feelings if they didn't say a word. After Gu Fei summoned the fire wheel, he had already jumped out. However, the people below did not know that in order to seek cover, Gu Fei had actually accurately hidden his body behind the dazzling fire wheel. Gu Fei's fire wheel from the sky was both an attack and a cover for himself. This made Sword Demon and Slender Waist Dance admire his courage and subtlety. Part of the fire wheel landed on the ground, and the other part landed on the roof. The moment the flames touched their bodies, the players who were burned already felt that something was wrong. The HP of the players was like a water pipe that had been unscrewed. However, the HP of the players wasn't a water supply company. At most, it was a water tank that could be flushed into a toilet. With this kind of catharsis, it was already pretty good that they didn't die. Didn't they see a few of their brothers directly die? What was worse was that when the flames faded, there was actually an extra person on the roof. It was a mage in black clothes. He held a long sword in his hand and instantly swept up another wave of flames. How big could a small woodshed be? Gu Fei turned around and double flame flash was enough to sweep through the area. Those who were about to die died on the spot, and those who didn't died because of the excessive loss of HP and a moment of panic, lost their footing and landed on the roof. Everyone looked at the sky like idiots, and then they saw 2 figures, one black and one red, suddenly shoot out from the top of the wall like human cannons. Without deviating, they landed on the roof. Sword Demon's prediction wasn't wrong at all. At this moment, those who were looking up at them like idiots were the ones who had the geographical advantage, and the ones who were originally at a disadvantage because of this unexpected opportunity were extremely happy. They didn't care about being idiotic at all, and under the strong attack, they instantly displayed a one-sided suppression. The details of the battle were no longer of any concern to Gu Fei and the others. Gu Fei nimbly jumped down from the woodshed, and immediately inserted the key in his hand into the keyhole, opening the door. Quick! Gu Fei shouted and rushed in first. Sword Demon and Slender Waist Dance weren't any slower, but Slender Waist Dance hadn't been here before and didn't know where the door was. He was a little confused when he jumped down, but with Sword Demon pulling him, he didn't go in the wrong direction. The two squeezed into the door almost side by side. With a wave of his hand, Gu Fei locked the door. Success! The three high-fived each other in celebration. Let's see what's going on outside. Sword Demon skillfully ran towards the hole. He also wanted to see how much impact they would have on both sides after they broke the balance. How is it? Gu Fei asked behind him. Pung pung. 2 sounds rang out above their heads. It was obvious that someone had jumped onto the hut. The 3 of them felt their hearts clench, because this shabby woodshed looked so unreliable. Fortunately, the roof didn't leak. Sword Demon turned back and said, "Let's see which side is running up now." Immediately afterward, there were people stepping on the roof, and the dust fell toward the three. The three of them couldn't avoid it. Slender waist dance was quite feminine when it came to cleanliness. She said angrily, "How many people can stand on this roof? Are they done? They're probably fighting on the roof?" Sword Demon looked up. "Don't care about them, hurry up and unlock it." Gu Fei went over to move the firewood. Chapter 488. The pile of firewood was quickly emptied. Sword Demon said as he moved. "No one moved it. I remember the shape we set it up." Gu Fei looked at him. "We just left for a while. We can't be careless," Sword Demon said seriously. Okay. Unlock." Being serious was not a mistake. Gu Fei could not say anything else, and could only signal Slender Waist Dance to start working. Slender Waist Dance, the locksmith who came from afar, showed the demeanor of a master. She waved her hand and pulled Gu Fei to the side. "Move aside. Let me do it." It was as if she was not going to unlock the lock, but to defuse a time bomb. Gu Fei and Sword Demon respectfully stood to the left and right. They stretched their necks, ready to admire the godly skill of unlocking. In the end, the process was very simple. Slender Waist Dance put her hand into her pocket and took out a key that looked like it was used to open a can of luncheon meat. She inserted it into the iron lock that locked the cellar. With a click, the lock opened. Amazing! Gu Fei and Sword Demon gave her a thumbs up. They moved closer to see Slender Waist Dance's awesome key. "What are you looking at? It's useless if you don't have any skills." Slender Waist Dance rolled her eyes at the two. Cough cough. The two coughed. Sword Demon stepped forward and struggled to pull up the cellar lid. Damn, another tunnel. Gu Fei glanced at it. He could see stairs and then a black mass. He immediately thought of the secret tunnel of Black Dragon Mountain. The shape was similar. What could it be? Slender Waist Dance was a little excited. Could it be that we can only enter the government building from here? Gu Fei thought. If that was the case, it would be very disappointing. Or should I say we can go out of the courtyard? Sword Demon suggested an even more disappointing idea. "Let's go take a look," Slender Waist Dance said. Gu Fei touched his pocket and took out a torch. Sword Demon and Slim Waist Dance looked at him in surprise. Although this was a very common item, most people wouldn't have it. Local culture, Gu Fei quickly explained. This torch was an honor bestowed upon him after he joined the 9-man group. After the torch was lit, Gu Fei stuck his head into the cellar to take a look. It wasn't too deep, so he held onto the ladder and began to descend. Slim Waist Dance and Sword Demon followed behind him. The tunnel was humid and had a musty smell. The three of them covered their mouths and noses as they groped forward. "It looks like a downhill slope," said the Sword Demon. Gu Fei and Slim Waist Dance mumbled something. The two of them did not want to let go and open their mouths. The road gradually widened and turned, as if it was a tunnel that spiraled downward. Finally, Gu Fei, who was walking at the very front, saw a flickering light. This was usually a sign of an exit, and this exit was so deep that it seemed to indicate that it was not a passage to the inside of the building or the outside of the courtyard. This place should be the location of some secret exit. It's an exit. Slim Waist Dance did not want to open her mouth to speak, so she switched to sending messages. She tugged on Gu Fei's clothes to make him pay attention. Gu Fei nodded his head furiously and quickened his pace. The three of them arrived at the exit in the blink of an eye and stepped in. In front of them was a spacious area. It was a secret room hidden deep underground. The scene in front of them caused the three of them to widen their eyes. They were speechless for a long time. What is this? The first one to speak was Gu Fei. He looked at the Sword Demon, the expert in online games. The Sword Demon's brows furrowed. He walked 2 circles and shook his head solemnly. I don't know. It's a bit disgusting. Slim Waist Dance spat out. In front of the three of them, there was a large object with a strange shape. It looked like a stone but not a stone, and it was hard to tell whether it was a crystal or not. The flickering light came from it. There seemed to be something flowing inside the object, and there were some unknown things attached to the surface. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was disgusting. Can I touch it? Gu Fei walked 2 steps forward. He did not feel anything strange with his body and wanted to reach out to try. I don't know. The two of them shook their heads. However, they used their gazes to encourage Gu Fei to reach out and try. The bold Gu Fei reached out and touched the object. It was hard and cold. Apart from that, there was nothing strange. He touched the strips of things again. They were dry and he still did not know what they were. The two of them saw that Gu Fei was fine after touching it, so they walked forward and studied it carefully. At that moment, Gu Fei retreated far away. He paid attention to the strips of things. The things crawled all over the object and then moved upwards. As Gu Fei looked at it, he suddenly realized something. This is a tree root. Tree root. The two of them were startled. They ran to where Gu Fei was standing. Look, this looks like a big tree growing on the ground. However, the roots underground are grabbing onto this thing, Gu Fei said. Such a big tree root, the tree should be very big, right? Slim Waist Dance said. There doesn't seem to be a big tree in the backyard, the sword demon said. Gu Fei continued to observe carefully. Following the veins of the tree roots, he found that after leaving the object, many of the tree roots twisted together and formed a knot. Then they scattered and inserted themselves into the soil above. This might not be the roots of a tree. It might be the roots of many plants. They were tied together and then attached to this thing, Gu Fei said. Then what is this thing? The three of them continued to be puzzled. They looked and touched it, but the system did not give them any hints. Let's look around the room, Gu Fei said. It was not appropriate to call it a room. It was just a hole in the ground. The three of them looked around. Suddenly Slim Waist Dance shouted, "Here!" Gu Fei and the sword demon hurriedly ran over. Slim Waist Dance was using her hand to wipe away the soil. A copper plate embedded in the wall gradually appeared in front of the three of them. The words on it were clear. The three of them hurriedly scanned a few lines and shouted in unison, "Water vapor absorber? Reduce the water vapor in the air?" The sword demon repeated the key words. Does this mean that it clears the fog? Gu Fei said. In other words, the reason why there is no fog in the government compound is because of the existence of this thing. The sword demon said. That's right. There is actually no fog in this place. Slim Waist Dance had the same reaction as Gu Fei when he came here for the first time. She didn't react to the strangeness of the courtyard. Gu Fei didn't reply because he suddenly thought of the Fog Shadow Assassin's diary. He hurriedly took it out and flipped to the third page. There was a short sentence. What a big fog. In this kind of environment, it is very easy to attack and escape. It seems like this mission will be very successful. Was this actually a hint for the mission? Was it hinting to the players that in order to assassinate Giordano, they had to borrow the weather conditions of Xiao Fog City? However, there was no fog in this compound. Therefore, there was an assassin who was sleeping with his feet pointing towards the water vapor absorber? It must be like this. Gu Fei felt that all of this was completely explainable. The Fog Shadow Assassin's diary was essentially a guide to completing this assassination mission. There was a hint hidden in it that in order to assassinate Giordano, they had to first destroy this absorber and change the weather environment. Gu Fei said his own inference. The sword demon and Slim Waist Dance both agreed that it was reasonable. Then, how do we destroy it? Gu Fei said. Attack it. The most simple inference. The problem is that we are all here. We don't know how to create the effect. Gu Fei said. Then I'll go up to the woodshed and keep an eye on it. You guys try it. The sword demon said. Gu Fei nodded. The sword demon left the cave and returned to the woodshed above. You can start. The sword demon said. Double flame flash, flash. Gu Fei didn't hesitate. He immediately used a super ultimate skill. The rock was just an inanimate object, so of course it hit. How is it? Gu Fei immediately asked the sword demon. It might take some time for the fog to form, right? Let's observe it. The sword demon replied. While the sword demon was observing it, Slim Waist Dance stabbed the thing countless times. Not even a small mark was left. Gu Fei faintly felt that attacking it directly might not be a reliable method. As expected, the sword demon sent a message saying that there was no change at all. These tree roots are connected to this thing all the way to the ground. What if we cut them all? Slim Waist Dance said. I'll try, Gu Fei said as he teleported to the top of the rock. He used his sword to chop at the knotted tree roots. In the end, he didn't know if it was because these tree roots had been entangled with the rock for too long. They were so hard that not even a scar was left. Gu Fei jumped down dejectedly. However, he heard Slim Waist Dance yell, "Aya, look here. The content of the copper plate isn't over." Gu Fei hurriedly ran over. It turned out that it wasn't actually a copper plate. Instead, it was shaped like an open book. Gu Fei and the others only looked at the left half of the record and didn't notice the right half. After Gu Fei went up, Slim Waist Dance went to read the copper plate. In the end, she noticed something strange on the right half. The water vapor absorber can absorb the excess water vapor in the area within 1 minute and 22 seconds. The water vapor absorber will automatically start working after the moisture content in the air exceeds the standard for 3 minutes. Turn off the water vapor absorber. A large amount of water vapor will be released. Within 35 seconds, a super fog will form in the area. Haha, so there's a switch here. After reading the 3 sentences on the right copper plate while erasing it, Slim Waist Dance suddenly discovered that there was a switch installed on the second half of the copper plate. She excitedly raised her hand and was about to hit it. Wait! Gu Fei hurriedly grabbed her hand to stop her. Time, Gu Fei said. You have to calculate the time. This hint was also written in the Fog Shadow Assassin's diary. An assassin can't remember the time? Even a minute or a second wrong is enough to be fatal to us. This must be a hint for the time. Gu Fei thought. If he really didn't discover this half of the content, and just tried to stop the water vapor absorber, then he would really die because of the time problem. This needs to be calculated, Gu Fei said. Calculated what? The fog doesn't affect the inside of the house. We have to make use of the fog to make our move when Giordano comes out to patrol. So, we have to calculate the time, Gu Fei said. Chapter 489. Calculate? Calculate what? Slender Waist Dancer asked. The route Giordano takes in the courtyard, and the time it takes to turn off the water vapor absorber to reach the fog. That way, there will be enough time for the assassination. Can't you calculate this? Gu Fei said. Then hurry up and calculate, Slender Waist Dancer urged. These aren't my strong points. I'm not a math teacher. Gu Fei mumbled as he took out his notebook. He had already recorded Giordano's route, as well as a few locations that received relatively less attention. There was no doubt that these locations could be used now. These were all places where Giordano would be placed in an uninhabited environment after the fog rose. However, the water vapor absorber would automatically start working after 3 minutes. It would be completed in 1 minute and 22 seconds. This meant that Gu Fei only had 4 minutes and 22 seconds to kill the boss. No, it should be less than 4 minutes and 22 seconds, Gu Fei said. The absorption of water vapor should be a gradual process. It will be completely absorbed in 1 minute and 22 seconds. During this process, the fog will gradually thin and visibility will gradually increase. The enemy may discover us earlier. Even if we set the time to be less than 4 minutes, it's not too reliable. For minutes, if it was just a normal PK, it would be more than enough. However, the current opponent was likely to be a boss-level character. Since the beginning of the game, Gu Fei had challenged bosses, whether it was Suo 2 or the trash boss Adrian who had lost the ability to transform into a werewolf, or even the strongest assassin in the fog, none of them had been defeated in less than 4 minutes. Tenacious vitality was a common characteristic of all bosses. After all, no matter how high the attack or how overpowered the skills were, a boss that could be defeated with one poke was not a good boss. Defeat the boss in 4 minutes. Sword Demon, who had returned after learning of the new discovery, was shocked when he heard this conclusion. That's impossible. It's more likely that the whole team will be wiped out by the boss every 4 minutes. Although Sword Demon didn't have much experience in sieging a large-scale boss in the parallel world, at least he had experience. As long as it was an online game, many aspects of the design benchmarks were the same. A boss that could be killed in 4 minutes could only be a high-level player bullying a low-level small boss. As for a boss of a suitable level, it was too worthless to be killed so easily. As for Gu Fei's diary, it was dropped from the Misty Assassin, which was a higher-level boss. Even if Giordano wasn't a higher-level boss, it should at least be at the same level, right? 4 minutes was too ridiculous. No matter what, let's give it a try? Gu Fei suggested. No, this is an impossible mission. No matter how skilled you are, your damage output is just that. If the boss just stood there and didn't move, you wouldn't have been killed in 4 minutes. If it was really designed like this, then there might be some technique in assassinating this guy. Sword Demon was worthy of being an experienced player. His analysis was clear and logical. Makes sense. Could it be that he has some hidden weakness? Gu Fei said. Are there any clues in the diary? Sword Demon asked. Diary. Gu Fei hurriedly flipped through the diary and found all the places that were mentioned in the diary that were related to Giordano. When the diary first mentioned Giordano, the Misty Assassin was already on the verge of collapse. He kept recalling the past to keep his mind clear. As for this unfinished mission, perhaps because it could stimulate his fighting spirit, he mentioned it a lot. When Gu Fei looked through the content of Giordano, he finally realized that there were many hidden clues here. Everyone has a unique habit. When they repeat this habit, it is often when they let their guard down the most. Giordano, what is your habit? I will definitely find it. After Gu Fei noticed this sentence, he immediately shouted at the two people. Look, so this place already reminded us to start with Giordano's habit. Strange, why didn't I notice this sentence at first? Let down the guard when he's used to it. Could it be that this boss's defense is very weak when he's patrolling and he'll be killed in one hit? Slender Waist Dance guessed. It can't be that simple. Sword Demon said. What else? With the help of the light from the water vapor absorber, Gu Fei continued to recall while flipping through the diary. In his memory, there was information about Giordano that was beneficial to fighting, but he didn't know if it was because he was a bit impatient, but he couldn't remember it clearly. He could only keep flipping through the diary and stop to look at Giordano's words. Finally, Gu Fei found the information he needed. It's here. He shouted. What? The two people hurriedly asked. Giordano? Famous for his sword skills? Then do you know what it feels like to lose confidence? Haha, I will help you. I will let your body relive the painful memories, completely crush your confidence, and then ruthlessly erase you. Gu Fei read out this sentence. It was the sentence that he had been looking for all this time. This was already very late in the diary. It could be seen that the Misty Assassin had already collapsed to the point of hysteria. The assassin's calmness wasn't much left, and what emerged was a wave of madness. Famous for his sword skills. It really isn't easy to deal with. Is this what you're looking for? Slender Waist Dance said. No, it's this sentence. Let your body relive the painful memories. Gu Fei said. From this sentence, Giordano should have been seriously injured. Perhaps this is his weakness. Seriously injured? What injury? Where is the injury? Is it written? Sword Demon said. No. Gu Fei shook his head. If this was written, then it would be a very obvious piece of information, and Gu Fei would have paid attention to it long ago. Doesn't that mean we don't know anything? Sword Demon said. Maybe when we fight, we can test it out. Gu Fei said. The two people's jaws dropped. That's possible? Of course, the premise is that the game is realistic enough. This setting of being seriously injured isn't just empty words. Gu Fei said. Or maybe your deduction is wrong. This is just the crazy words of the person who wrote the diary. Slender Waist Dance said. But other than this, I can't think of anything else. There's only so much about Giordano in the diary. You've seen it, what else is there? Gu Fei said. The two shook their heads. So this is the only way, Gu Fei said. When will Giordano show up? Sword Demon asked. Gu Fei looked at his record. He left the room at 10:22 sharp. After 5 minutes and 57 seconds, which is 10:27:57, he will walk out of the main entrance of the government office and arrive at the first feasible assassination spot at 10:35:22. It's only 10:10 now, and there are still 25 minutes before the earliest opportunity to strike. But now the players outside are still in a mess. Will it be inconvenient? 25 minutes. Their battle doesn't seem to be over. Sword Demon asked. The players don't have to worry too much. When I first came, I already noticed that there were fewer players fighting on Giordano's route in the front yard. Maybe the players in the fog were worried that PK here would be detrimental to Giordano and affect their mission, so they deliberately controlled it? Gu Fei speculated. In fact, Giordano's patrol route was through a few NPC areas in the front yard. Both sides deliberately avoided the NPC guards, and the relatively sparse area just happened to include Giordano's route. Let's not talk about making a move first. It's very difficult to rush to the assassination spot in this situation, right? Sword Demon said. Water vapor absorber. If we turn it off, it'll be easy to move around in the fog, right? When we make a move, we just need to time it and turn it off again. Gu Fei said. Repeatedly coming and going in the fog won't alert the NPC, right? Sword Demon said. Isn't that thinking too much? Is it that realistic? Gu Fei said. Hey, you still want to rely on realism to find the boss' old wounds. Sword Demon said. If that's the case, we have to think about it. Let's just pretend that this thing can only be used once. Now we have to think of another way to get close to the location. Gu Fei said. Hey, if you guys think about it this way, then after the fog rises, will that Giordano give up his original route and change to this small woodshed because of this abnormal situation? Slender Waist Dance said. Gu Fei was at a loss. Why do I feel like we've already analyzed the problem more and more complicated? Slender Waist Dance's words make sense. If we think about it this way, we can't not pay attention to this point. Sword Demon said. Okay, then you guys summarize what we should do. Gu Fei felt a bit of a headache. Everything will continue as before, but the people who stay behind to turn off the water vapor absorber must immediately leave the woodshed after turning it off. Be careful not to get killed by the NPC inside. Sword Demon said. As for Giordano, I don't think he'll immediately notice once the switch is turned off. It takes time for the fog to rise gradually. When he notices, he should be not far from the location you need. Then you two just need to find an opportunity to pull the monster. Pull the monster. I say, Sword Demon, sometimes your words really ruin the atmosphere. Gu Fei said. Sorry, it's a habit. I'll pay attention next time. Sword Demon said. Why do you stay behind? I run faster. Let me turn off the switch. Slender Waist Dance said. No, you should go with Qianli. Time is limited. In order to complete the mission, we need more damage. You're more suitable than me. Sword Demon said. Watch your words. Words. Oh, damage. Sorry. I'll pay attention next time. Okay, then it's settled. Gu Fei decided. Then how do we get close to the assassination site in the middle of a chaotic battle? This problem doesn't seem to have been solved? Slender Waist Dance asked. Since there's no other way, we can only kill our way through. Gu Fei cruelly wiped his sword. Slender Waist Dance was depressed. Why do I feel like the plan we came up with after thinking for a long time doesn't feel exquisite at all? Why not? What a meticulous plan. It's so exquisite that you can't ignore it for even a second. Be more spirited. If you die on the way out, you'll be a failure. Gu Fei said. I think you'll be the one to die. Slender Waist Dance cruelly pulled out her dagger. Chapter 490. Gu Fei and Dance left the cave one after the other, and returned to the small woodshed. Gu Fei looked at the situation outside through the small hole. He turned around and wanted to say something to Dance, but he found that Dance had already pulled the door open. Fuck! Gu Fei shouted. Without further ado, he followed Dance and rushed out of the woodshed. Outside the door was a battlefield. Dance's eyes revealed a vicious glint. As soon as she jumped out, she was prepared to kill the person closest to her. However, Gu Fei was faster. He raised his hand and pulled Dance's arm down. Wait. Wait for what? There are two groups of people. Kill which one? Gu Fei said. Why? Look at their eyes. Gu Fei said. Under Gu Fei's reminder, Dance paid attention to the other party's eyes. Sure enough, she found the difference. When the man who was about to kill Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance saw the two of them come out, he was pleasantly surprised. On the other hand, his opponent glared at Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance as if they were his enemies. Hua! With a flash, the man's opponent was cut down by Gu Fei's sword. Everyone, do your best! Gu Fei raised his arms and shouted. Ao ao ao! Do your best! A group of people shouted along with Gu Fei. The man in front of him shouted even louder. His opponent, who had been fighting with him for a long time, was instantly killed by Gu Fei. What an amazing expert! Worship! Brother, which guild are you from? The man couldn't find a guild badge on Gu Fei's body, so he asked. We'll talk later. There's an enemy coming. Gu Fei swung his sword and helped the man block another attack. He then patted his shoulder. I'll leave this to you. That guy seemed to be shouldering some kind of important mission. He nodded heavily with an attitude that he wouldn't hesitate to die 1,000 times, turned around, and charged forward. This way. Gu Fei called Slim Waist Dance. He had already memorized the guild emblem of Flower in the Fog. As he walked, he greeted those who weren't Flower in the Fog warmly, and slashed at those who were Flower in the Fog. Then he patted someone behind him and said, I'll leave this place to you. Gu Fei and Slim Waist Dance, one black and one red, shuttled through the battlefield very smoothly. Slim Waist Dance did not even have a chance to attack. You're so treacherous. Slim Waist Dance looked at Gu Fei in disdain. Gu Fei ignored her and continued to walk while shouting, Come on everyone. Just like that he managed to walk from the back of the building to the front. This is the place. Gu Fei led the slender dancer to an empty spot on Giordano's patrol route. Of course, this empty space was only for NPCs. There were no guards within dozens of meters of this location. If there was fog, then Giordano would be hidden. However, there were still players fighting. Although they were trying their best to stay away from the NPC guards, there were still some sporadic fights in this small empty space. Alright, you just stay here and wait. Gu Fei said to the Slender Waist Dance. What about you? Slim Waist Dance asked. This is too dangerous. I'll hide in the building. Gu Fei said. Bastard, you mean you're going to leave a beauty in a dangerous place and run to a safe area? Do you have any humanity left? Slim Waist Dance was furious. You know stealth I don't. I can enter the government office, you can't. So you're safe here, I'm safe in the building. Everyone is safe. Gu Fei said. Why can you enter the government office? Slim Waist Dance asked. Gu Fei took out his wanted license and showed it to her. How much? Slim Waist Dance revealed her true self. She wanted something good as soon as she saw it. I'm sorry, this can only be used by the owner. Gu Fei said. How did you get it? Slim Waist Dance asked. Go in stealth first. We'll talk in private. Gu Fei said as he turned around and hurriedly walked towards the door. Everyone was focused on their opponents. Gu Fei tried his best to not attract any attention. No one really noticed him. In the end, he successfully entered the government office. He let out a long breath and sent a message to Slim Waist Dance. How is it? Is it safe? It's safe. Slim Waist Dance went into stealth and crouched down in an open space. It was so safe that she could do whatever she wanted. Tell me, how did you get that thing? Slim Waist Dance asked. As Gu Fei walked towards the guard room, he briefly explained the requirements for the wanted license and its magical effects to Slim Waist Dance. It's so troublesome. Slim Waist Dance felt a bit pained. She was used to getting equipment by throwing money at people. Last time, getting the wind-chasing boots had already challenged her patience. This time, getting the license required even more perseverance. Slim Waist Dance hesitated. This isn't useful to you, right? It's not like you're doing a wanted quest. Gu Fei said. It's useless, but I still want it. Slim Waist Dance said. Although she wasn't an idiot who treated money as waste paper, Slim Waist Dance, who didn't lack money, didn't live a frugal life. Although she didn't really need it, as long as it was rare, she would want it. This was a habit of hers. Then go get it. Gu Fei didn't care. As he spoke, he pushed open the guard room. Hi. As soon as he entered, someone on the sofa waved at Gu Fei. It was Drifting. Waiting for me? Gu Fei said. Yeah. Drifting smiled. What are you doing? Looking to die? Gu Fei asked. You're too arrogant. You should have panicked when you saw me waiting here calmly, Drifting said. I am indeed very surprised. Although you know the purpose of my mission, you are still sitting here so casually. Do you think that the reputation of the 5 roaches is too heavy? Gu Fei said as he unsheathed his sword. Wait, Drifting said. He knew that Gu Fei was fast. If he teleported here, Drifting didn't have a good chance. He had to admit that he was no match for Gu Fei in terms of strength. What? Gu Fei wasn't in a hurry. Gu Fei knew that not everyone could enter the government office, so even if Drifting had any traps, he and Lefty would be the ones to deal with them. Gu Fei didn't really care about the 3 of them, even if one of them was a top-notch expert like the 5 roaches. Don't you think we don't need to be enemies anymore? Drifting said. Oh, we're all here for the quest. The quest is more important, Drifting said. Oh, do you need my help with your quest? Gu Fei said. You're thinking too much. Our quest is done, Drifting said. Then why did you suddenly change your mind? Gu Fei said. Don't you already know about my original plan? That day, I dealt with the people who came in so that we could go in and out freely. Now that we've achieved our goal, it's over. Why are we still enemies? Drifting said. That's because I can't stand the way you do things. Gu Fei sighed. Really? Then I'm sorry. I apologize, Drifting said. Gu Fei was surprised. Drifting's sudden change of attitude was a bit strange. Was he really afraid of him? He thought about it and said, What about the guild? Guild. I've done everything I can do for the guild. Do you want me to die? I've only joined the guild for a few days. I don't have that awareness, Drifting said with a smile. Gu Fei finally understood. It seemed that Drifting really didn't want to be enemies with him. This guy's way of doing things was really insidious and smooth. His quest was done, and the guild didn't know about the people who caused trouble behind his back. If he reconciled with Gu Fei, nothing would happen. He didn't offend anyone. His quest was done, and he still had a lot of friends. You should have brought Slim Waist Dance. Let her see what's called treachery, Gu Fei said. Right, I saw Slim Waist Dance. You brought such a strong person here. It seems that you're determined to succeed this time. Drifting acted as if he didn't hear Gu Fei say he was treacherous. Gu Fei continued to look at Drifting. As an educator, I won't be happy if I don't correct my mistakes. What educator? Drifting was confused. And you're an adult. I think we can skip the education part. You should just bear the consequences. Gu Fei said. Drifting's expression changed. He knew that his negotiation with Gu Fei had failed. He realized that he had misjudged Gu Fei. He thought that a strong person like Gu Fei would be amenable to persuasion, but not coercion. He didn't expect this guy to be so stubborn. He wasn't afraid of fighting and killing, but now that he had taken the initiative to reconcile, he was ignored. I hope you won't take it to heart. I'll punish you, and we'll still be friends, Gu Fei said. Drifting had given up on the comfortable sofa and stood up. His staff was already in front of his chest, but he was panicking. What kind of joke is this? I'm not the boss if I fight this guy one-on-one, Ice Shadow. It's useless. This guy can find me directly. Falling Clothes Red Lotus? The space in the room was like this. Falling Clothes Red Lotus would attack all the guards. It might not be able to kill Gu Fei instantly, but he would definitely be killed by the guards. Since there was no other way, he could only take a gamble and see if he could die together with Gu Fei. He couldn't die in vain, right? Drifting waved his staff and was about to chant. Suddenly, Gu Fei was in front of him. Teleportation. Drifting had expected this. Is this guy going to use the same trick as last time? Since this was the case, he didn't care about his manners anymore. Seeing Gu Fei raise his arm and swing it at his mouth, Drifting made up his mind. Bite. Drifting nimbly stretched his mouth forward and closed his teeth. Crack. Drifting found that there was an apple in his mouth. Woo. Because Gu Fei firmly pushed him forward, Drifting still couldn't speak. He was crying in his heart. Shameless. Didn't you tell me if you wanted to use a prop? For the sake of our friendship, I won't kill you directly. I'll let you try your luck. As he spoke, Gu Fei pushed the apple with his right hand and pushed Drifting back. He pushed open the window with his left hand and tripped Drifting. The apple fell out of Drifting's mouth, but he didn't have time to chant. He could only shout, "What do you want to do?" before he was sent out of the window by Gu Fei. "The apple vinegar is falling." Gu Fei shouted at the players on the third floor. Chapter 491. When he was pushed out of the window by Gu Fei, Drifting's heart was already in his throat. When he heard Gu Fei's shout, his heart was like dead ashes. How could Drifting not know apple vinegar, the brightest star in Dawn Fog City? He was being treated as apple vinegar. How could he have a good ending? Thinking of this, Drifting tried to turn his head and look down, but he immediately relaxed. Gu Fei, who was at the window upstairs, also felt sorry. Due to the chaos of the people below, Gu Fei's shout from the third floor didn't cause any reaction. The players below continued to focus on killing. Any shout from one of them was enough to cover up Gu Fei's careless shout. No one noticed that he was drifting, and he just fell straight to the ground. The guard room was only on the third floor, so it wasn't enough for him to fall to his death. However, the players around him were shocked. What kind of alien was this sudden visitor? Drifting climbed up, patted the dust off his body, and received a message from Gu Fei. "Looks like you're in luck." Fuck. Drifting secretly pointed his middle finger at Gu Fei, who was at the window on the third floor, then turned around and limped away. The players around him wondered who this person was. No one went to fight Drifting. After hesitating for a few seconds, they finally realized that they were in the middle of a battle. How could they stop fighting so tacitly? So the two sides fought again. Back on the third floor, Gu Fei cleaned up Drifting and sat back on the sofa. While waiting for the time to come, he carefully observed Giordano, hoping to see if there was anything unnatural about his actions. But Giordano just stood and talked. What could be unnatural about him? Finally, it was time. Giordano started his patrol on time. Gu Fei quickly stood up and sent messages to Sword Demon and Slim Waist Dance. "The target is moving." Following Giordano, he went out and went downstairs. At the gate, Giordano pushed open the door and slowly walked out. Gu Fei was not in a hurry. He hid behind the door and peeped at the situation outside. For him, the longer he was exposed in the courtyard, the more danger he would face. In any case, he would not walk as slowly as Giordano, so he could use his speed to set off later. Paying attention to Giordano's speed and time, Gu Fei finally made his way out of the government office. While paying attention to his surroundings, he moved forward cautiously. Finally, after Giordano stepped out of the range Gu Fei expected, Gu Fei sent a message to Sword Demon. "Close. Done." Sword Demon answered immediately. "Hurry up and run. When you come out, do this and this, then find a chance to sneak away." Gu Fei taught his treacherous tricks to the Sword Demon. Gu Fei was not too worried that the Sword Demon would need to rush out alone because the fog would basically form by then. It would be relatively easy for the Sword Demon to hide. The air in the courtyard began to change and gradually became thicker at a speed visible to the naked eye. The players who were originally focused on the battle began to notice. What's going on? Everyone had this question. But Gu Fei did not care so much. At this time, he had already begun to sprint with all his might. "Get ready." Gu Fei sent a message to Slim Waist Dance. It would take 35 seconds for the fog to completely form. Gu Fei left himself 20 seconds to catch up with Giordano. "We're here." The moment Giordano stepped into the assassination site, the fog completely formed. Visibility was as low as in the wild. Gu Fei also happened to arrive behind Giordano. After reasonable calculations, everything was so perfect. However, then Gu Fei almost fainted because something happened that was not in his calculations. They were surrounded. A large group of people rushed out of the fog. They had already seen Gu Fei approaching Giordano. They waved their swords and shouted, "What the hell are you doing?" "I miscalculated." Gu Fei cried in his heart. He actually ignored a very important point. At this moment of being attacked, how could the players not focus on guarding against Giordano? They had a better understanding of Giordano's movements. They had probably been on guard from the moment Giordano appeared, but the fog had disrupted their rhythm, so they arrived a little late. They couldn't compare to Giordano's precise calculations, or else they would have been killed before they could even get close to Giordano. Gu Fei was right. The players were indeed on guard against Giordano's appearance, but there was a dispute on how to guard against him. Some people believed that the enemy might not know that this NPC was an important character in the quest, and had chosen him as the target. So being so cautious would only make it seem like they were hiding something. They might as well be more daring and pretend to ignore him, causing the enemy to avoid him like how they avoided the other guards. Others thought that this idea was too bold. They could not be sure that the enemy did not have this information. Perhaps they were waiting for Giordano to appear, and then swarm him. Under the situation of the dispute, they finally came up with a plan that killed two birds with one stone. Secretly protect him. When Giordano appeared, they did not rush to surround him and protect him. Instead, they mobilized a portion of their men to follow Giordano's movements while maintaining a distance from him. If there were any abnormalities, they would react immediately. If there were no abnormalities, they would naturally be fine. In the end, the truth was that no hostile guild had taken any action. Gu Fei, the assassin, had actually kept his distance from Giordano. In fact, he was even further away than them, the protectors. As a result, they were not on guard against Gu Fei. When Gu Fei began to sprint, it was already the fog stage. Under the cover of the fog, Gu Fei arrived at Giordano's side perfectly. These bodyguards, on the other hand, realized that something was wrong when they saw the fog. They quickly closed in, but they were naturally slower than Gu Fei, who was already prepared and had a fast speed. Don't come over. Gu Fei's sword was on the side of Giordano's neck again. The same trick was used twice. Gu Fei felt very ashamed. It's you again. Someone had already recognized Gu Fei. Having fallen for the same trick twice, they would only feel more ashamed than Gu Fei and break down even more. However, they still did not dare to move. For minutes, only 4 minutes. Gu Fei complained in his heart. Every second was very precious now. It was really distressing to waste time with these guys like this. But if he attacked now, these guys would definitely swarm him, and he would not be able to deal with them. What should he do? Gu Fei could not think of a countermeasure at the moment. He could only regret that his plan was not thorough enough. But at this moment, another guard suddenly rushed out of the fog and ran in front of Giordano. Giordano also stopped and said in a deep voice, "What's going on?" "It seems that the water vapor absorber has been destroyed," the guard replied. "Go and check it immediately," Giordano ordered in a deep voice. Yes. The guard ran away. Did the plot happen? Gu Fei looked at the NPC interaction in front of him in a daze. How could a hostage that was held by him be so calm and orderly? What was going on? But on this point he was not wrong. If the sword demon was still in the cave at this time, he would definitely be taken down. It was a pity that he did not expect the players to be so out of control now. What should we do? Slender Waist Dance asked. Gu Fei could feel that she was by his side at this time. But what should he do? Gu Fei also wanted to ask this question. Kid, in this situation, you have no chance to kill Giordano. Just leave. We won't make things difficult for you. Someone began to persuade Gu Fei. But before Gu Fei could reply, there was a sudden commotion at the back of the encirclement. The crowd quickly became chaotic. This was obviously not 1 or 2 people being attacked, but the entire encirclement was attacked. This was clearly organized. It was their enemy guild. This thought flashed through Gu Fei's mind. Seeing that these guys had begun to turn around to face the enemy, and Gu Fei had wasted one of his precious 4 minutes, he could not hesitate anymore. Do it! Gu Fei shouted at Slender Waist Dance, who was in the air beside him, and swiped his sword at Giordano. At this moment, Gu Fei was a little nervous. After all, this mission was made up by him. If this Giordano turned out to be like some ordinary business NPCs, and could not attack, then all his efforts would be in vain. Fortunately, Gu Fei's biggest worry didn't come to pass. His sword slashed out cleanly, and Giordano, who was under attack, quickly turned around and punched out. Gu Fei dodged to the side, but Giordano had already unsheathed his sword. His expression was one of rage as he swung his sword down. Gu Fei dodged and then returned the sword. He did not use any mana. He hoped to see Giordano's weakness before using high damage here. Slender Waist Dance also attacked at this time. She had already hidden behind Giordano and stabbed him with backstab. Her reaction was also very fast. After stabbing, she quickly ran away. Slender Waist Dance's damage was very high. In game terms, this stab created a lot of aggro. Giordano turned around and chased after her. Slender Waist Dance relied on her speed, and Giordano could not do anything to her for a while. But Gu Fei complained endlessly. In the blink of an eye, he had wasted more than 10 seconds. Now he had to find out the weakness through the fight. What could he find out by chasing around? You attack again later. After Gu Fei shouted at Slender Waist Dance, he had no choice but to go up and release the ultimate skill of Double Flame Flash. The high damage output was followed by continuous harassment. Slender Waist Dance on the other side just blindly ran away. Giordano's attention finally turned back to Gu Fei. Giordano was very strong. Gu Fei could already feel it. Fortunately, he did not have the abnormal speed of the Fog Assassin. Gu Fei could easily dodge his attacks. However, so far he had only used some ordinary stabs and slashes. As a boss, he would eventually have some ultimate skills. When the ultimate skill appeared, could he dodge it? Or rather, when the ultimate skill appeared, would Giordano reveal his weakness? Butterfly Knot. The assassination officially begins. Chapter 492. The big move came at the drop of a hat. In a situation where normal attacks couldn't deal any damage to Gu Fei, Giordano very straightforwardly used a killing move. His figure, who had been attacking all along, suddenly stopped. The blade of his sword abruptly sank downwards, and the dust around him was suddenly blown into the air. Giordano suddenly shouted loudly and flipped his sword over. He yelled, "Burst flames!" His one-handed greatsword, which was several sizes larger than Gu Fei's Nightstream sword, suddenly became like a red-hot soldering iron. It emitted a scorching heat and swept up a heat wave as it struck towards Gu Fei. The sword hadn't even reached him. It had only come into contact with the heat wave, but Gu Fei's health had already begun to drop. The might of this sword could be imagined. Gu Fei didn't even dare to use his sword to receive it. He was afraid that if he was too close to this move, he would be melted by it. He could only dodge. When Gu Fei dodged seriously, the position he would choose wouldn't be as simple as dodging an ordinary move. He would choose to enter a dead angle where his opponent couldn't continue attacking. At this moment, Gu Fei tilted his body and suddenly scuttled towards the right side of Giordano's body. This position was precisely the angle where Giordano couldn't pursue after his attack, unless his joints could complete a twist that humans couldn't achieve. With the reality of the parallel world's propaganda, this sort of thing couldn't possibly happen. There was no threat for the time being. This was the judgment of Gu Fei, who had successfully seized this dead angle, with great confidence. But Giordano seemed to know that this attack was useless. The bright red blade of his sword had already returned to normal, but then the blade of his sword turned into a pitch-black mass. It made people feel extremely heavy when they looked at it. Giordano's loud yell followed. Crag burst. Gu Fei's judgment of the dead angle was extremely accurate. If Giordano wanted to attack him in this position, he would need to move his body by a large margin. This would give Gu Fei ample time to observe his movements and respond. However, Giordano's second crag burst attack was faster than Gu Fei had imagined. He followed up with his second attack almost at the same time that the exploding flames failed. This made Gu Fei a little confused, because from that position, it was impossible for the same move to hit him. What did this guy mean by using it again? At this time, Gu Fei didn't know that Giordano was using another skill. Although he had heard Giordano's yell, the tragedy was that flame burst and crag burst were a perfect homonym. Giordano's sword stabbed into the ground with incredible speed. Gu Fei was still puzzled by this inexplicable action of his. Suddenly, an incomparably huge force attacked him from beneath his feet. Not good. Gu Fei's mind spun extremely quickly, and his reaction speed was even more astonishing. He reacted a step late, dodging almost at the same time as the skill's explosion. The ground cracked and shattered rocks flew everywhere. Gu Fei was sent flying by the wave of dirt. He could feel his health rapidly dropping, but at the same time, he knew that he had dodged the majority of the force. It shouldn't be enough to kill him, right? Gu Fei paid attention to the drop of his health. In the end, he lost his balance in the air because of the flying dirt and rocks and fell to the ground. How are you? Slender Waist Dance glided over and quickly helped Gu Fei up. I'm still alive. Gu Fei saw that his health had stopped dropping at a fifth. Idiot, how did you dodge it? Slender Waist Dance said. I hate this type of attack. Gu Fei was gloomy. It was such a perfect dodge, but Giordano had chased after it in such a way. This type of unrealistic fantasy attack was outside of Gu Fei's expectations. Just like that, Giordano didn't need to adjust his figure, and completed a perfect attack on his enemy's blind spot. Of course, what was even more hateful was that damn homonym. Gu Fei now knew that these two weren't the same skill. Despicable system. If these two skills weren't homonyms, Gu Fei definitely wouldn't have hesitated so much after hearing it. At the very least, he wouldn't have lost so much health. Of course, the battle didn't stop there. Giordano turned around, and when Gu Fei wasn't in his attack range, he slashed out with his sword and yelled again. Burst delay. Fuck. Gu Fei also yelled out. At the same time that Giordano yelled out, Gu Fei felt a sword wind that seemed to be able to tear through everything coming towards him. Gu Fei hurriedly rolled on the ground, and a deep crack appeared on the ground where he had just fallen. There should be a limit to how despicable you can be. Gu Fei clenched his teeth. 3 completely different skills with homonym names. It was hard to believe that this wasn't a deliberate design. Slender Waist Dance was so shocked that she couldn't speak. She had been right next to Gu Fei, but Giordano's hatred was clear, his target was clear, and his attack was precise. This attack didn't touch her at all. However, when she didn't react, Gu Fei dodged, and a crack appeared in front of her. A terrifying attack, a terrifying dodge, and a terrifying gap. Although Giordano's attack was terrifying, Slim Waist Dance felt that Gu Fei's reaction was even more terrifying since he was able to dodge the attack in time. You pervert. Slender Waist Dance felt that this description was perfect for Gu Fei. Are you ready? We're going. Gu Fei said to Slender Waist Dance. You saw his weakness? Slender Waist Dance was surprised. Giordano strode forward. After 3 consecutive killer skills, Giordano returned to the path of ordinary attacks. There was no helping it. As a boss, this was necessary. After all, bosses were for players to kill, so players had to have a decent chance. A boss that kept using high-level skills wasn't a good boss either. I can see the traces. Gu Fei said to Slender Waist Dance while dodging the attacks. This guy's attack path is a bit off and sluggish. This is caused by some of his old habits. Please speak Chinese, thank you. Slender Waist Dance said expressionlessly. To put it simply, he should have been using his left hand, but now he's using his right hand, Gu Fei said. In other words, his left hand is injured, so he can't use his left hand? Slender Waist Dance's eyes lit up. It might not be his left hand. It could be any part of his left arm, especially the joints, Gu Fei said. Then we have to try? Slender Waist Dance said. That's right. Gu Fei nodded. Let's hurry. It's the left shoulder, idiot. Suddenly, a lazy voice sounded from the side. Slender Waist Dance immediately turned around to look. A guy in fighter attire was sitting on the ground, picking his nose while looking at Gu Fei, who was fighting with Giordano with disdain. Who are you? Slender Waist Dance was on guard. Hello, beautiful. I'm that idiot's cousin. The person who suddenly appeared was Gu Xian. Gu Fei didn't turn around, but he already knew it was him from the voice. Why are you here again? How did you get in? Slender Waist Dance was shocked. This was because around their circle, the 2 guilds outside were fighting fiercely. It was hard to imagine that there would be a guy sitting on the ground so leisurely. His appearance didn't match the atmosphere around him at all. Hee, I'm quite popular here. Gu Xian laughed. Windstring, hurry and kill that guy. A confused player pointed at Gu Fei and yelled at Gu Xian. They were currently tired of fighting with their opponent's guild, and couldn't spare any manpower to protect Giordano. Gu Xian's reappearance surprised them, But what was even more surprising was that no one from their opponent's guild attacked Gu Xian. They could understand this point. Gu Xian was famous in Cloud Fog City, had good relations with people, and was also a free player without a guild. These people from the guilds recognized him, so naturally they wouldn't make things difficult for him. Wait, let me see how this guy is going to deal with the boss first. Gu Xian said unhurriedly. Fuck. Then what's the point of our quest? The confused player was furious. Who knows what your quest is for? I never said I'm here to help you with your quest, right? Gu Xian actually answered the guy's question patiently. Ah! Suddenly, a heart-wrenching scream made everyone's heart skip a beat. Everyone couldn't help but look towards the direction of the sound. In the middle of the circle, Giordano had already thrown away the sword in his hand. His right hand was holding onto his left shoulder as he let out a scream. What's worse was that his eyes had already become cloudy, as if he had lost his mind. While Gu Xian and the confused player were talking nonsense, Gu Fei had already found an opportunity to heavily strike Giordano's shoulder twice. One was a dual flame flash, the other was a thunder palm, both of which were currently Gu Fei's strongest damage skills. Gu Fei believed in Gu Xian's judgment. Foresight. This kind of thing wouldn't degenerate because of laziness. Gu Fei's first strike caused Giordano to reveal an expression of extreme pain. After the second strike, Giordano fell into a state of mental breakdown. The Misty Assassin's Diary was a genuine quest guide filled with hints. Find out Giordano's weakness, attack it, and uncover the shadow of his pain. It was a very cruel method, but Gu Fei had done it. At this moment, Giordano's pain was very realistic. His eyes revealed a deep level of fear and trembling, which somewhat moved Gu Fei. This kind of pain, perhaps it wasn't just an injury. His injury must have been a terrifying experience. This was where Giordano's true shadow and pain lay. Perhaps this Giordano also had a complete past? Hey, what are you daydreaming about? Hurry up and do it. Gu Xian said. Gu Fei was a bit hesitant. He knew that the person in front of him was just an NPC. Its fate was to be hunted by players. But this time, Gu Fei's quest was completely based on his imagination. Unknowingly, he already felt that these NPCs were a kind of living existence. Just like when he was reading the Misty Assassin's Diary, Gu Fei sincerely hoped that the lost assassin would be able to walk out of the fog and return to the path of his life. Do I still want to complete the quest? This question suddenly appeared in Gu Fei's heart. Chapter 493. Hey, hurry up and do it. What are you hesitating for? Everyone in the circle hesitated when they saw Giordano's heart-wrenching pain. Gu Fei only hesitated in his heart, but his expression did not change. Slender Waist Dance had already put a pitying expression on her face. Only Gu Xian was unmoved. After seeing the two's hesitation, he gave them a word of warning. So pitiful, Slender Waist Dance said. There's almost no time. Gu Fei said this for himself. Whether to do it or not, he had to make a decision quickly. The fog was coming soon. At that time, a large number of system guards would rush over, and even a god would not be able to escape. Come on, come on. At this moment, the crowd suddenly came closer. Someone shouted. Then they saw Sword Demon squeezing through the crowd with his face covered. In this day and age, masked people were no longer rare. Masked masks were a common type of equipment for assassins. However, for the Sword Ghost, it was more important not to reveal his face. Obviously, he knew that he belonged to the type that people would never forget after seeing him. Of course, Sword Demon also knew the coordinates of the assassination site. After escaping from the small woodshed, he used the trick that Gu Fei taught him to get away with it all the way here, just in time for the end of the mission. Sword Demon saw Giordano half kneeling on the ground in pain at a glance. With his face covered, no one could see his expression, but everyone could hear his surprised tone. Success. Yes. Gu Fei nodded. What about now? Sword Demon did not understand why Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance did not make a move at this time. Instead, they stood beside Giordano like bodyguards. Isn't this cousin of the Gu family? Why is he here again? Sword Demon was very polite. He did not hurry to greet people at this critical moment. So pitiful. Slender-Waist Dance pointed at Giordano and said to Sword Demon again. Huh. Sword Demon was puzzled. No wonder he was a veteran MMORPG. His mental fortitude was extremely high. In his eyes, Giordano wasn't a person. It was experience, gold, or treasure boxes. He didn't have any sympathy for a system character. Slender-Waist Dance was a girl. Sword Demon could understand her mentality. Girls were often more immersive when playing online games, but Gu Fei, he didn't even blink when killing players. Couldn't he do it to an NPC? Sword Demon suddenly felt that human nature was too complicated. There's not much time left. Sword Demon reminded Gu Fei. I'll leave it to you. Gu Fei patted the Sword Demon. Sword Demon didn't hesitate at all, and immediately stepped forward. Anyone could see that Giordano wouldn't resist at all. If it was a normal game plot, he would only have a sliver of HP left and say some last words. Finally, the player would casually stab him, and the plot would be completed. This was what Sword Demon did. He stabbed Giordano's body. Then there was the sound of him falling to the ground. Sword Demon turned his head excitedly. I got it. There really is a quest. Your deduction was right. What did you get? Gu Fei asked. Sword Demon held up a bloody bag, Giordano's head. Just like the assassination of the great thief Suitu. The moment the corpse fell, the system automatically completed the decapitation and found the bag. It was too violent and bloody for the player to cut off the head themselves. Let's retreat, Sword Demon said. He was a bit surprised. The quest was completed so smoothly. Why didn't these people look happy? Yes, we have to go. Gu Fei looked at the time and then looked around. The fog was already a bit thin. The water vapor absorber seemed to have started working again. The players who were watching in the fog were tired of the team battle. When they had time, they turned their heads and looked over. They were shocked to find that the head of their quest issuer, the key protected target, Giordano, was gone. He fell lonely in the yellow sand. Ah! The people who saw things through the fog believed that this was a super awesome mission failure. Everyone was going crazy. Some people threw caution to the wind and wanted to fight the murderer to the death. However, they were quickly stopped by their opponents. The murderer in their eyes was a hero, a knight, and the savior of the guild battle in the eyes of their opponents. Hey, aren't you leaving? How long are you going to stay here and pick your nose? Gu Fei and the others were about to retreat, but Gu Xian was still sitting on the ground. No, I want to draw a line with you. Otherwise it will be very troublesome, Gu Xian said. So Gu Fei ignored him and led the other two into the battle. The three of them were treated like heroes. The players tried their best to cover for the three of them. This was something Gu Fei didn't expect. However, they had long since studied the route of retreat. From the start of this quest, the biggest threat in Gu Fei's mind was the NPC soldiers. In order to block their line of sight, Wu Li's current route of retreat was to avoid them as much as possible. With the cover of the team, the chosen route, and the unique speed of the three of them, the retreat was daunting but not dangerous. The three of them smoothly rushed out of the main gate of the government compound. Behind them, the sounds of killing still shook the sky. It's over. Gu Fei looked back. He had spent a lot of energy and time on this for the past few days. Now that he had reached the end, everything was in the past. He suddenly felt a little disappointed. Sword Demon wasn't disappointed at all. He didn't feel disgusted with the blood bag in his hand. For a veteran player, the reward of the quest was the climax. Yo, it's already done? The three of them walked out of the main gate. After walking a few steps, a figure appeared in the fog. He saw the three of them and greeted them. Why are you here? The person waiting here was actually the Han family young master. If it wasn't for my series of arrangements, would your quest have been successful? Han family young master said. What arrangements did you make? Gu Fei said. Think about it yourself. Giordano had already died, but his old friend was still there. The annoying guy was still as annoying as ever. The melancholy in Gu Fei's heart suddenly lessened a bit. It was probably diluted by this annoyance. Let's leave this place first, Sword Demon said. He was afraid that the people in the fog would surround them at any time. Let's leave, it's almost over. Han family young master said as he looked towards the courtyard. At this time, the fog had finally dispersed again. Experienced players could see at a glance that one side of the battle had already started an organized retreat. What did you do? Gu Fei asked the Han family young master. Gu Fei concluded that the Han family young master had calculated a lot of the actions of this group of guild players who were in the fog. But of course, this wasn't his guess. He should have been secretly and cleverly guiding the other side to cooperate with Gu Fei's actions. Suddenly, Gu Fei reached the most critical moment of the operation. At the assassination site, when he was surrounded by the players in the fog, the other guilds suddenly rushed over. Was this really a lucky coincidence? It didn't seem difficult to make this kind of arrangement. As long as he gave these guilds some hints, telling them that Giordano was a very important character, and revealed reasonable coordinates, the coincidence in the end was completely predictable. Gu Fei quickly remembered that when he and Sword Demon were researching the mission together, Han family young master also took his notebook and casually glanced at it a few times. This guy really knew how to look at the key points. Gu Fei sorted out the Han family young master's thoughts. The things that he missed were actually all considered by this guy who was not part of the situation. He had to admit that this guy's overall strategic thinking was a cut above others. He would calculate every detail and make sure there was no deviation at all. How is it? Are you convinced now? Han family young master didn't answer Gu Fei's question at all. But looking at Gu Fei's expression as if he had understood something, he probably guessed it. You seem to have grasped all our actions. Gu Fei felt that it was a little unbelievable. This guy's guess was a little too accurate. Of course, I asked Sword Demon. The real answer was so simple. At this time, Sword Demon couldn't wait to complete the mission and asked Brother Yu. Brother Yu, where is your cabin in the oak forest of Forest Shade City? With Brother Yu's intelligence habit, he naturally remembered the coordinates of the places he passed by. After answering, he asked, Did you find anything new? More than that, we've completed it, Sword Demon said. What? Giordano has been successfully assassinated by us, Sword Demon announced. Can we really carry out the mission without the mission bar? Brother Yu's stubborn online game thinking was subverted. Damn, I miscalculated. Unscathed in battle sighed. Originally, I should have followed Qianli this time. Yutian Shunming was also regretful. Brother Yu, experience and dogmatism can't be done. You've learned from this. Unscathed in battle said. Yes, the spirit of innovation is very important. Look at Qianli. Learn more. Yutian Shunming said. Hey, you two, you don't have to post it in the channel for everyone to see even if you're making sarcastic remarks. Brother Yu was depressed. These two people were clearly beside him, but they wanted to talk to him in the channel. Could it be that they had some ulterior motives? The two's intentions were quickly exposed, and they sent almost at the same time in the channel. Brother Qianli, take us to receive the reward. Shameless. Everyone couldn't help but sigh. Speaking of which, who does this mission belong to? Sword Demon also had this doubt. After all, there was nothing in the mission bar. Everyone, go and receive the reward. Try it and you'll know. The two shameless guys continued to shout. If even you guys can receive the reward, then there's really no justice in this world, Han family young master said. Although those people went to Shady Forest City, it had nothing to do with the actual assassination. If they had to make a connection, touching the Misty Shadow Assassin's diary was probably their only achievement. So are we going to Shady Forest City now? Sword Demon was very spirited. Tomorrow it's time to go offline, Gu Fei said. Oh, that's good. For Sword Demon, this day must have been very difficult, but since it was Gu Fei who released it, then no one would have any objections. Then we don't have to come back, right? The three people who were still on the way back asked. No need, Han family young master said. Then what about that guy? Jian Nan and his gang, aren't they going to continue the chase? Isn't there still a staff? Those two greedy guys wanted everything. A bunch of trash. If you guys remembered things, it would have been over long ago, Han family young master said. Butterfly knot. Yesterday's left shoulder and right shoulder was a typo. The weakness is the left shoulder. Chapter 494. Everyone didn't think much of it. Indeed, because of this quest, everyone had been so busy these past few days that they had forgotten that they had purposely chased after Jian Nanyu to Xiaowu City. However, Han family young master clearly seemed to have forgotten about it as well. Yet, at this time he was still reprimanding them. The Staff of Resurrection in Jian Nanyu's hands has already been put up for sale. Han family young master said. There's such a thing. The others were surprised. A bunch of trash. Han family young master continued to look down on them. However, these people in front of him, who had been dealing with him for a long time, had already trained their disdain to the point of being immune to damage, so they pretended not to hear it. Could it be a smokescreen? Brother Yu asked. No, it was put up for sale in the exchange. The staff's information and the seller are all clear at a glance. It was already bought by someone 2 days ago. Han family young master said. Are they cutting their losses? Sword Demon sighed. It seems like they know that holding that thing in their hands is troublesome, so they might as well exchange it for money. Dropping 2 or 3 levels in a few days is too much of a blow to their confidence. Everyone sighed. The people around Gu Fei all looked at him. They habitually thought that it was because of Gu Fei. But in reality, when they thought about it carefully, not many of the 7 people had died directly in the hands of Gu Fei. I don't think it's just a matter of confidence. Jian Nanyu is a member of the robber circle. Perhaps he received some news in their circle and knew that many people in the same circle were eyeing them. This is probably the main reason why he was so ruthless to sell it. Brother Yu analyzed. Later on, let's look at the forum. If he wants to drop this bomb, he might also post something there. Makes sense. Everyone said. Also, Brother Yu continued to send messages in the channel. What are the attributes and data of the staff? Hurry up and tell me. Gu Fei and the others, who were not with him, were already imagining Brother Yu eagerly pulling out his notebook and pen. Unfortunately, only the Han family young master had seen the consignment. Obviously, he was not reliable when it came to this kind of thing. Although this guy was smart, he would not let things that he was not interested in occupy his brain. The answer he gave Brother Yu was not satisfied. I forgot, the name seems to be Resurrection Staff, and the skill is called Resurrection of the Dead, right? Let's take a look at the forum later. There might be some. Everyone comforted Brother Yu. Hence, Brother Yu quickly went offline to check the forum. Gu Fei also went offline. To them, this was a day of complete victory. However, to the Flower amidst the Fog Guild, this day was a tragedy. After Gu Fei and the others left, the enemy guilds immediately retreated in an organized manner. To be honest, they had no idea what they could do to ruin Flower gazing through the fog's quest. In any case, they had already caused a huge ruckus in the courtyard. Even the system guard boss had been killed. This was a huge harvest. No matter how many people they had, they would not dare to attack the system guard boss. Han family young master had predicted this, so he told these guilds that there was a quest that could help them attack the system guard boss. This was why these people were so cooperative. The smoke from the battlefield dissipated, and Flower gazing through the fog's players had a sorrowful expression. After so many days and nights of perseverance, all they got in return was a headless corpse. This corpse laid there for a long time and refused to respawn, as if it was mocking them for their incompetence. 3 sighs of Flowing Maple's face was ashen. They knew the other party's goal and made all possible arrangements, but in the end, the other party still completed the quest. Where's Wind String? Didn't he say that he would take care of that guy? 3 sighs of Flowing Maple was going crazy. He left. Someone came up and said, before he left he said that person was his relative. He tried to persuade him but he couldn't. Bullshit. 3 sighs of Flowing Maple roared. Everyone was silent. Their guild leader had always been known for his calm demeanor. Recently, he seemed to have gone insane from all the torment. He kept getting angry, a classic case of endocrine imbalance. Drifting, where did he go? 3 sighs of Flowing Maple looked around and couldn't find Drifting, so he sent a message to Drifting. I'm sorry, guild leader Flowing Maple. I tried to persuade that guy to give up on the quest, but I couldn't. I've let you down, and I've let the guild down, so I'll leave. Drifting replied. Fuck. If it was a phone that sent the message, it would have definitely been smashed by 3 sighs of Flowing Maple. Flowing Maple, calm down. 3 sighs of Flowing Maple's comrades comforted him. Let's wait for the next quest issuer to come out and see how the quest goes. The issuer is over there. 3 sighs of Flowing Maple pointed at the headless corpse. Everyone was speechless. Giordano was indeed dead, but how could there be one less NPC in the system just because of one death? Of course, replacements would be spawned very soon. It seemed like 3 sighs of Flowing Maple had really lost his mind. The players all retreated, feeling that it was the wisest decision not to interact with him. Giordano patrolled once a day, which was equivalent to once every 6 hours in real life. None of the players left the courtyard, and everyone spent these 6 hours with a heavy heart. The door of the government office suddenly opened, and Giordano appeared in front of everyone with the same smiling face and voice. No one was excited. After all, this was how NPCs respawned. It was impossible to erase the fact that the previous Giordano had died. As expected, at the position where he usually announced the quest progress, the new Giordano angrily said, "I am the new guard Captain Giordano. My predecessor was actually assassinated under your watch. How did you do your research?" No one paid attention to him. Who would take an NPC's criticism seriously? In any case, no matter if you said something nice or begged for mercy, the NPC would not show any mercy. Everyone was just waiting for him to announce the result. 50 points deducted. Keep your spirits up from now on. The new Giordano turned around and left. Guild leader. Guild leader. Someone come, the guild leader is in shock. The players were in chaos. 50 points. 3 sighs of Flowing Maple, who had just woken up, almost cried. 50 points meant 50%. Right now, the entire courtyard was completely cleared of weeds. 3 sighs of Flowing Maple could not think of any way to get back this 50% progress. By relying on the meager automatic increment every day? Would he be able to see this quest completed in his lifetime? Disperse. We give up on this quest. 3 sighs of Flowing Maple announced dejectedly. Everyone was dejected and did not know what to say. The morale of the guild had fallen to the lowest point. Guild leader. At this time, someone suddenly sent a message in the guild channel. Someone outside the courtyard says that he wants to see you. Let him come. 3 sighs of Flowing Maple replied indifferently. Perhaps he did not even see what was going on, but he just gave an answer that he agreed. To him, he did not think that there could be any worse situation. Who is it? Someone in the guild muttered. The person quickly arrived in front of 3 sighs of Flowing Maple and the others. 3 sighs of Flowing Maple weakly glanced at the person and used an appraisal skill. Our guild does not accept people who are not level 40. The person was only a level 35 cleric. Giordano has been killed. 50 points deducted, right? The person said with a smile. Yes. After 3 sighs of Flowing Maple responded, he suddenly realized something. Who are you? How did you know? The person glanced at the lifeless players. Don't be discouraged. There is still a chance to salvage the situation. What chance? 3 sighs of Flowing Maple asked. Get 50 points in one fell swoop. If everything goes well, you can even complete the quest in one go. The person continued to smile. Who exactly are you? 3 sighs of Flowing Maple had returned to his usual calm state. As he spoke to the person, he was already analyzing the situation in his mind. Who could this person be? A spy from an enemy guild. However, there was no need to try and bluff when the quest was already a complete failure. What was this person trying to do? My name is Wuxia. Trust me, I can help you. The confidence on the person's face was very eye-catching among the dejection and disappointment around him. Is that so? Then what should I do? Tell me. 3 sighs of Flowing Maple wanted to give it a try. Don't look like that. This isn't difficult. Come with me. Wuxia turned around. Let's go take a look. 3 sighs of Flowing Maple said to the people beside him and followed. The expressions around him were uncertain. Everyone was guessing who this person was. Some people thought that the guild leader was still in a state of collapse. He actually believed a level 35 noob that came out of nowhere. Another day passed. The next day, when Gu Fei logged on, he immediately received a call from Sword Demon. It was obvious that he had been waiting for him for an entire day. Let's go. Sword Demon called out to the crowd. Teleport. Gu Fei said to Slender Waist Dance. He knew that the teleportation scroll could not only teleport one person at a time. Get lost. It's free. Slender Waist Dance flatly refused. This kind of expensive item, Slender Waist Dance, was clearly only prepared to use it in times of crisis. To her, other people's laziness wasn't a crisis at all. I asked around and found a shortcut. It's much closer than Waterside City, Sword Demon said. Oh. Mist City, Waterside City, and Shady Forest City. These three cities form a triangle. It's possible to directly walk toward Shady Forest City from Mist City, Sword Demon said. Then why did the Misty Shadow Assassin pass through Waterside City before departing from Shady Forest City? Sword Demon was silent for a while. Can you not reason with the system? Sometimes it's very realistic, but sometimes it's illogical. Gu Fei complained. Passing through Waterside City should also be an important clue. If it's an ordinary player, they probably have to go there to find out something. Han Family Young Master said. What do you mean? What is an ordinary player? To put it simply, after exchanging a few moves, you can see through the opponent's old injuries. Do you think this is something an ordinary person can do? Han Family Young Master said. What do you mean? Giordano's old injuries are a clue from the diary. But where are the old injuries? An ordinary person would have to spend a lot of effort to investigate. How could there be such a barbaric guy like you who would use violence to solve it? Han Family Young Master said in disdain. You mean the clue is in Waterside City? Gu Fei said. I didn't say that. What I meant was that the assassin passed through Waterside City. It's not that the system is unreasonable, it's a clue deliberately left behind. Since you believe it to be true, then all the illogical parts aren't unreasonable, they're doubtful. Chapter 495. In the end, everyone agreed with Han Family Young Master. Gu Fei's way of completing missions was indeed mixed with some extraordinary feats. For example, the first time he challenged the map, he saw traces of fighting in the environment in the Luminous Village. And this time he read Giordano's old injury from his attacks. These were impossible for any ordinary person. If a normal person wanted to know where Giordano's old injury was, they would have to find another way, but Gu Fei relied on his specialty to take a shortcut. The group chatted as they continued on their way. Gu Fei greeted and bade farewell to everyone that he knew here. Come again when you're free. The most enthusiastic response was from number 2, Scissorhands. Goodbye. Strange Pupil's answer was the most ordinary. Haha, I'm now in the top 10 thieves. Yen Xiaozhu did not care what he was saying to her. She shared her joy with someone who had sent her a message. Gu Fei smiled. Yen Xiaozhu's rise to the top 10 was all thanks to him. This was because Gu Fei had kicked Apple Vinegar out of the top 10 thieves leaderboard, giving Yen Xiaozhu a spot. Oh, was Gu Xian's answer meaning oh? He was constantly showing others that he was a lazy person to the bone. I'm preparing to go to Sunset City too. If there's any good business in the future, remember to take care of me. This was 100 Live's strategist, who had followed them to Sunset City. He spoke like a businessman and got into character very quickly. The journey was boring. Han Family Young Master passed the time by drinking. Sword Demon was definitely someone who could endure loneliness and boredom. Gu Fei practiced her footwork by walking. Therefore, the most boring thing was the waist dance. She began to regret not using the teleportation scroll, but it was too late. There was no mailbox in the wilderness for people to use. In the end, she could only kill time by chatting with other girls in the guild channel. We're almost there. Finally, the iconic dense forest of Forest Shade City appeared in the sight of the four of them. Then they saw 3 familiar-looking guys on the road beside the forest. Brother Yu, unscathed in battle, and Yutian Shenming were eagerly waiting. You're here. Yutian Shenming was very enthusiastic, as if he had missed everyone very much. Hey, the slender pretty girl is here too. Beautiful women couldn't escape his eyes. Well, let's hurry up. Hurry up and form a party. We're going to complete the quest. Unscathed in battle said shamelessly, emphasizing the word we. I really can't think of any reason for you to be rewarded. Sword Demon said. Wuxiang, you and Yutian haven't even read the diary, right? Who said that? I heard brother you read 3 pages. Yutian Shenming's face was filled with pride. Let's go, take us to the small wooden house, Gu Fei said. The 3 people had already been added to the party. Brother Yu led the way, and soon, the party of 7 arrived at an oak forest. Brother Yu pointed forward, and a lonely small wooden house came into view. Gu Fei stepped forward and gently pushed the door open. Not long after Gu Fei and the others left Cloud Fog City, the entire flower gazing in the Fog Guild suddenly rejoiced. Just now, after the new Giordano appeared, he announced to them that they had done very well during this period of time. The Castellan thanked them for their contributions, and decided to reward them. It's done? 3 Sighs Flowing Maple couldn't believe his ears. He looked at Hongchen Yixiao beside him in surprise, the rookie who had appeared mysteriously. After listening to his instructions, the task that the flower gazing in the Fog Guild had delayed for several days was completed in 1 day. Of course, Hongchen Yixiao said with a smile. You can go find the Castellan now. The guild leader, 3 Sighs Flowing Maple, who had temporary access to the government office, couldn't wait to follow the new Giordano to meet the Castellan of Cloud Fog City. The rewards were also announced at this time. Just like the rewards for completing guild quests, the players who didn't die during the quest received money and experience. More importantly, the guild was directly promoted by 1 level. When 3 Sighs Flowing Maple walked out of the government office, he was so happy that he couldn't even close his mouth. The haze of the past few days had been swept away, and he didn't hold a grudge against Gu Fei for causing trouble again and again. Instead, he was very interested in the rookie named Hongchen Yixiao in front of him. A small character like this knew quite a lot. Where did this person come from? Thank you so much. After walking out, Flowing Maple 3 Sighs immediately thanked Red Dust Smile profusely. His gratitude came from the bottom of his heart. It's nothing, I just did what I was supposed to do, Hongchen Yixiao said. What you were supposed to do? The people who heard Hongchen Yixiao's words didn't understand. Your quest received damage that shouldn't have happened at the moment. Assassinating Giordano shouldn't have been a quest that current players shouldn't have been able to accept. Even if they did, they wouldn't have the ability to complete it, Hongchen Yixiao said. But someone did accept it and completed it. 3 Sighs Flowing Maple's mind thought of the annoying black mage. That's why I said that he's an unreasonable existence, Hongchen Yixiao said. Your GM? 3 Sighs Flowing Maple's reaction wasn't slow, and he suddenly came to a realization. No. Hongchen Yixiao shook his head. I'm just a normal player. He smiled. 3 Sighs Flowing Maple, and the others were a bit confused. If he was just a normal player, then what did it have to do with him whether their guild quest was completed or not? Moreover, this person didn't ask for any benefits from the start. Alright, congratulations on your guild rising to rank 7. I'm leaving. Hongchen Yixiao turned his head and prepared to leave. Hey wait. 3 Sighs Flowing Maple quickly caught up. Although he still didn't know what kind of character this guy was, 3 Sighs Flowing Maple was sure that if he absorbed this person into his guild, there would definitely be benefits. Guild? Forget it, I'm about to leave Xiaoyu City, Hongchen Yixiao said. Leave Xiaoyu City? Where are you going? 3 Sighs Flowing Maple subconsciously asked. After assassinating Giordano and receiving the reward, I should be going to Forest Shade City's Oak Forest. Hongchen Yixiao seemed to be talking to himself. Forest Shade City Oak Forest. The door to the small wooden house was pushed open by Gu Fei, but he was the last to enter. Every one of those guys was more impatient than him. Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shenming were the first to enter. It clearly had nothing to do with them. The light in the small wooden house wasn't very bright. Looking at the furnishings, it seemed like a study. There was an NPC sitting behind the desk. When he saw someone rush in, he didn't have much of a reaction. He only raised his head and looked at them. My name is Gru. What business do you all have? His opening speech was exactly the same as when Brother Yu and the others had come looking for him. Sword Demon glanced at Gu Fei, who was the last to enter. He carried the bag of blood containing Giordano's head and walked up. Everyone held their breath and stared. What kind of existence would this quest be? When Gru saw the bag, he finally had a reaction that Brother Yu and the others hadn't seen before. Giordano? Xiaoyu City's Giordano? Gru said in surprise. That's right, Sword Demon replied. You guys did it. Gru looked at the people in the room. Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shenming were the first to get excited. He said, you guys. Does that include us? No one paid attention to these two. Sword Demon just continued to answer, yes. Where's Andrew? Gru asked. He's dead. Sword Demon's reaction was slightly slower. He hesitated for a moment before remembering that Andrew was the name of the Haze assassin. Usually, these characters were collectively referred to as bosses. Very few people remembered their names. What a pity, Gru said. Hearing the news of the Haze assassin's death, the NPC's face didn't show any unusual expression. It was as if he had heard something very normal. After a short silence, Gru continued to say, although you guys aren't from the Alliance, since you've completed this quest, then I can give you a chance to join the Alliance. How about it? Think about it. Only by joining the Alliance can you get the reward. Join. Hearing the word reward, Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shenming jumped up. Don't rush. Understand the situation first. Brother Yu persuaded the two of them. Then they heard Sword Demon ask, Alliance? What alliance? Assassin Alliance, Gru replied. What's that? Sword Demon asked. This is an ancient and mysterious organization that uses absolute punishment to purify all evil in this world. But now, people's ideals have mostly been replaced by material desires. We have to rely on some rewards to support our mission. How about it, young man? Regardless of whether you have ideals or other motives, there's already a door in front of you, Gru said. Sword Demon looked back at the others. This kind of background introduction made veteran players feel a sense of déjà vu. Brother Yu, who had the most information, was the first to conclude. Could this be faction? Faction was a concept introduced in some online games. It divided players into different groups by the system to enhance competition and interaction among players. Since the opening of the parallel world, there hadn't been any introduction or publicity about factions. Some players had criticized this, but the officials had remained silent. Could this be a faction? Very similar. Join and give it a try? I don't know if we can retreat when the time comes. It doesn't matter. Factions are just a type. Strength will be determined by the final players. Then should we all join this assassin alliance? I wonder if there are any class restrictions. Can we only be assassins? We'll know after we try. After a long series of discussions, many people decided to give it a try. The first to bear the brunt was naturally Sword Demon. I want to join the Assassin Alliance. Sword Demon said to Gru. Very good. Young man, I hope you can fight for your ideals and not for money. Take it. This will be a symbol of your identity. Gru waved his arm, and a black light seemed to pierce through Sword Demon's left arm. Sword Demon also felt a sharp pain. He quickly rolled up his sleeve, and saw a tattoo of a dagger inserted diagonally on his arm. There was a string of English words on the blade, and the number 2 was written on the handle. Chapter 496. A group of people surrounded him, grabbing onto Sword Demon's arm to look at it. Yutian Shenming pointed at the pattern on the dagger. What does it say? Death or glory? Han family young master read it out loud. Death and glory. TSK. Everyone sighed. Number 2. Brother Yu analyzed the number. This means that Sword Demon is now the second in the Assassin's Alliance, right? In other words, there are only 2 people in total. Han family young master said. 2 people. I don't feel comfortable calling it a faction. Unscathed in battle said. This means that the system isn't widely available to players. With Haze Assassin's abilities, he should be a boss around level 60. From the mission in his diary, There was a reward for joining a faction. This means that level 60 might be the era where players will join factions. Through some guided missions, we can get this opportunity. Brother, you analyzed. Everyone felt that it made sense. But the world is really big. We aren't the only ones who can complete level 60 missions. I wonder who this number 1 is. Brother, you sighed. Who cares? We want to join too. Yutian Shunming and Unscathed in Battle said at the same time, rushing forward. A leading serial number was a symbol of seniority. It was simply a lifetime of glory. No matter how amazing you are, you're just number 42568. In front of number 1, you'll never be able to win back that sense of pride. Otherwise, why would QQ's short ID be called Beautiful ID? I'll take 3, I'll take 3. Yutian Shunming and Unscathed in Battle roared as they charged at Gru. In the end, Gru just looked at the two coldly and said in disdain, although the Assassin's Alliance has lost its purity from ancient times, it's not a place that anyone can join. Then how can I join? The two of them asked at the same time. Gru ignored them. Everyone looked at him in disdain. I've already said it. There's no reason for you guys to be rewarded too. If that's the case, then I'm probably the same. Brother, you went up and gave it a try. As expected, he gave the same answer. I don't even need to test it. The Han family young master didn't go forward at all. Although he had provided a lot of help in the quest, no matter how great his contribution was, the stupid computer would never calculate it. This was a contribution that only the players knew. His gaze landed on the last two people. Slenderwaist Dance had made a special trip to unlock the door, entered the control room of the water vapor absorber, and stabbed Giordano. She was a substantial participant in the mission and deserved permission. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Slim Waist Dance stepped forward. However, the result made everyone's jaws drop. Looking at Galu, who was dancing with a slender waist, an extremely contemptuous expression appeared on his face. He said disdainfully, "Thief? You've completely abandoned your ideals and become a gold digger. You've already stepped into the abyss of depravity. The Assassin's League will never allow someone like you to sully it." What? Slender Waist Dance was completely stunned. She was both confused and wronged. I think he's talking about your profession. The Assassin's League doesn't accept thieves? Brother, you said. Everyone was a bit surprised. Thieves and assassins were originally from the same master, and they only branched out after advancing to level 40. Who would have thought that an organization named after assassins would reject the thief profession so decisively? Moreover, from his tone it sounded like he hated thieves. I can't be a mage either, right? Gu Fei walked up at this time. The others were imagining what kind of vicious words Galu would use to slander the mage profession. The result was once again unexpected. Galu looked at Gu Fei and said sincerely, "Stick to your own beliefs and ideals. You're a fickle guy. No one will welcome you." Everyone's jaws dropped. Unscathed in Battle said absent-mindedly, "Damn, this Galu has a lot of words. What does he mean this time?" "I don't understand." Qianli let him say it again. Yutian Shunming said. Gu Fei tried to join in again, but the silly NPC naturally repeated his lines without missing a single word. This sounds like the lines of refusing to change factions. "Brother, you said. Qianli, you've already joined a faction? When?" Everyone asked in surprise. How could that happen? How come I didn't know? Gu Fei was at a loss. "Wait," Sword Demon said. He pointed at his tattoo that was still exposed and said, "One of the characteristics of factions seems to be that they will number the players who join first." Everyone's eyes pointed at Gu Fei again. Could it be? Gu Fei had already taken out his wanted license. This is also a faction? Looks like it. Everyone nodded. What kind of faction is this? Gu Fei was sad. Look at the Sword Demon's faction. It had a famous name, a firm business philosophy, and an outstanding NPC employee. One look and you could tell that it had the potential to become a successful company. As for his own faction, he didn't even know if it had a name. The others were also snickering. Cough, this one. Looks like it's a civil servant. It's a government job. It's an iron rice bowl. Unscathed in Battle said. Constable? Police? City management? Yu Shenming imagined. It's okay. At least you're number 1. Brother, Yu said. No wonder this thing can't be traded. It's the same as the sword demon's tattoo. Slender Waist Dance said. Then what if I throw it away? Gu Fei suddenly had an idea. If it really is the proof of joining the faction, then even if you lose it, you can probably get a replacement, Brother Yu said. But with how despicable the system is, it will definitely charge a high fee to get a replacement. Also, it will definitely deduct some of the faction's benefits, Han family young master added. Benefits? I've never done that, Gu Fei said. Everyone patted him and remained silent. Come, let's continue to understand the Sword Demon's Assassin Alliance. Everyone shifted their attention. Gu Fei's faction, which they didn't even know the name of, was too lacking in temperament. Based on the experience of these old foxes, it would definitely be a weak faction. Seeing that everyone had finished trying, the Sword Demon continued to communicate with Gru. As a member of the Assassin Alliance, you need to continuously improve your skills. Come, choose what you need, practice and master it. Gru said. Wow! Everyone exclaimed. There's a reward so soon. While shouting, they inadvertently sized up Gu Fei and the wanted license in Gu Fei's hand. The Sword Demon's face was also brimming with joy. What did you learn? Everyone asked. Dual mastery. Sword Demon said excitedly. His luck was really shining these few days. First, he learned the overpowered super skill Misty Ambush, and now he learned the dual mastery that he had been dreaming of. A cold light flashed, and the Sword Demon finally wielded the small green equipment set with both hands. Double dagger long kill short sai. Wow, boss Sword Demon, you're so cool. Yu Shenming screamed at the top of his lungs. Slender Waist Dance, who also used daggers, also had an envious look in her eyes. Invincible, this time you're completely invincible. Unscathed in battle patted the Sword Demon. They were all very clear about the attributes of Double Sai. However, a trace of regret remained in the Sword Demon's eyes. The additional skill still hasn't been activated. Don't be too greedy. Unscathed in battle said. No, I'm just thinking, how can this skill be activated? Doesn't Qianli's sword also have a skill that hasn't been activated yet? Sword Demon said. Gu Fei nodded. If it's not a problem of level, then it should be a problem of my sword coefficient not reaching the required level. Adding points like this, your magic coefficient shouldn't be enough. Someone questioned. His clothes have the attribute of magic mastery +1, someone reminded. Is Sword Demon's dagger coefficient not enough? If it's dual mastery, it's still divided into primary and secondary hands. The secondary hand's coefficient is slightly lower than the primary hand, especially since Sword Demon's skill is new. Let's increase the skill level. Unscathed in battle suggested as someone who had experienced dual mastery. Looks like that's the case. Everyone actually felt that Sword Demon's left hand's double sai seemed to be a bit dimmer than his right hand's double sai. Quick, continue. What other benefits does the Assassin League have? Everyone asked. Nothing. Just this skill. Choose 1 out of 3, Sword Demon said. Choose 1 out of 3. What are the other 2 you didn't choose? Everyone asked. One passive skill is dual mastery. The other is an attack skill, Slit Throat, which can be used on targets below 15% HP. If the target's life is accurately hit, it'll be a sure kill. The other is a movement skill, Shadow Feet. Shadow Feet? Before Sword Demon finished speaking, Gu Fei already cried out in surprise. You know about it? Everyone was shocked. Because Gu Fei's gaming knowledge should be lacking. There was no reason for him to know a skill that they had never heard of, unless this guy had seen it in PK. You fought with someone who knows this skill before? Han family young master asked. Gu Fei nodded. This person should be number 1, right? Everyone guessed. Logically speaking, this was a level 60 faction quest, so the faction rewards would naturally be level 60 as well. This kind of level skipping reward wasn't something that could be found everywhere. The chances of obtaining the same skill from the same source was very high. Who is this person? Everyone was waiting for Gu Fei to reveal this name. Apple Vinegar, Gu Fei said. Apple Vinegar? It's from Xiaoyu City. So it was you who caused the top 10 thieves to lose a level 2 days ago. Brother Yu exclaimed. Huh, you didn't know? Gu Fei felt like he had told the story of the 9-people group before. You only told me. Sword Demon confirmed. Apple Vinegar was that number 4, right? That's him. And not only does his skill have shadow feet, his dagger also has this skill, so he can use it twice in a row. It's pretty hard to defend against, Gu Fei said. Hard to defend against? I still died in your hands, you top 10 assassin. When the level rankings updated, I should have guessed it was you. Brother Yu said. That guy was actually number 1 in the Assassin's Alliance? That PK maniac. Gu Fei recalled Apple Vinegar's perverted face. Chapter 497. That's not right. Gu Fei suddenly shouted when he recalled the incident with the apple vinegar. What is it? The others looked at him. Back in Xiaofog City, I heard from Strange Eye that this apple vinegar has a wanted license, so he can enter and leave the government office freely. Now he's the number 1 in the Assassin's League. How did he join 2 factions? Gu Fei was confused. Strange Eye is just saying. Is she sure that it's true? Han Family Young Master said. I'll ask her. Yutian Shenming would not let go of any chance to interact with the girl. I'll do it. Unscathed in battle snatched the opportunity. Thus the two began to argue. It was enough for one person to interact with the girl, but now, the other had joined in. No one liked this kind of competition. While the two were arguing, Gu Fei had already finished asking his questions. Strange Eye said, fuck. When Gu Fei uttered those 3 words, Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle already knew that the two were arguing. They both gave Gu Fei the middle finger. Gu Fei ignored him and continued. She only heard the rumor by chance. As for how it started to spread, I'm not sure. That doesn't make sense. Brother Yu said. Qianli is already the number 1 on the wanted license, which means that no one before him has this thing. This thing has never been revealed by the officials. If Qianli didn't say it, no one should know about its existence. So how did the rumor start? One more thing, I'm already the number 1. If the rumors are true, then Apple Vinegar's number will be before mine. Even before the number 1. He's the number 0, right? Gu Fei said. That shouldn't be the case. The order of the numbers in a game is usually the same. Nothing in the parallel world starts from 0, so theoretically, this number shouldn't start from 0, Brother Yu said. Brother Yu, you have so many theories. Everyone looked askance at him. Because I'm not sure if there will be any abnormalities in this game. Brother Yu said dejectedly. Everyone could understand Brother Yu's frustration because in the quest they had just gone through, Brother Yu had made deductions from the game's common sense, while Gu Fei had filled in the blanks with his own imagination. In the end, Gu Fei's deductions were all correct, while Brother Yu's deductions were all wrong. Gu Fei patted his Brother Yu to comfort him. Just as he was about to continue the topic, the Han Family Young Master spoke first. Stop guessing. Other than satisfying your childish curiosity, what's the point of guessing who it is? Then what is meaningful? Gu Fei said. Mission. Sword Demon looked at Jelu as if he was talking to himself. Then he turned his head and said to everyone, there's a mission here. What mission? Everyone asked. It's a daily mission. Sword Demon said. Gu Fei immediately recalled the daily mission he had received from Giordano in the main city. It seemed like it was the same concept as Sword Demons, which was unique to the camp. After he told them about his experience, everyone was stunned. So Giordano is an NPC in the same camp as you. Brother Yu said. But you killed him. Yutian Shenming said. The experts looked at each other in dismay. Why? Gu Fei asked. This I don't know in this game, but generally speaking, players in their own camp will have a reputation, honor, or prestige. In short, it's something like this. If you kill a player or NPC in the same camp, you'll have this thing deducted. In some games, once you reach a certain number, you'll be kicked out of the camp. Brother Yu explained. Actually, I still don't understand what's the difference between joining or not joining a camp. Gu Fei asked. The most obvious example. Brother Yu pointed at Sword Demon and said, "He got a skill and has a daily mission that others don't have." "Why didn't I get a skill?" Gu Fei was puzzled. "So, a group of people turned around and sighed. "A trash camp?" "Not necessarily," Brother Yu said. "Maybe it's just that Qianli hasn't found the right NPC to give out the reward. All camps should be equal, so there shouldn't be too much difference in the reward content and difficulty of the mission. By the way, how did you get that wanted license?" How could these veterans not know what Brother Yu said? It was just that they were a little unhappy to see Gu Fei, a rookie, walk in front of them again, so they habitually mocked his camp to deal a blow. In fact, it was good to be able to join a camp at this time, even if it was Gu Fei's trash camp, as they called it. Although they liked the Assassin League more, they felt that Sword Demon's method of joining could not be replicated. In comparison, Gu Fei clearly had a clearer plan. "There are 300 wanted players," Gu Fei replied. "Compared to joining the Assassin League, yours doesn't seem difficult at all." Yu Tianshiming laughed. Because he had played the wind-chasing boots, he already had a certain level of success. "It's not difficult, but it's more time-consuming." Brother Yu had already estimated how much time it would take to complete 300 wanted missions. This was not calculated in hours but in days. Moreover, this mission had combat risks, and Brother Yu did not have the confidence of those masters in PK. Besides, this mission was not an efficient way to level up, and his level ranking would definitely drop. In general, it was not a mission that could be completed happily while drinking tea and listening to music. "Sword Demon, you're really straightforward." After listening to Brother Yu's analysis, Yu Tianshiming changed his words. The sword ghost had a simple and honest smile on his face, as if he had no desire for anything. 300 times. Everyone was muttering this number. Only Han family young master rolled his eyes. As a cleric, if he wanted to complete this kind of mission, he would definitely need a strong person. And not a short-term worker, but a long-term worker. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be such a big difference in the way of joining a faction. Brother Yu said, "Sword Demon's mission is high difficulty." Of course, because we're now at level 40, that's why the difficulty is super high. But Qianli's mission is definitely time-consuming, no matter what level you're at. These two methods are too different, right? Theoretically, it's impossible. I know you're going to say that. Han family young master said. Brother Yu nodded. So, there are actually different ways to join a faction. Sword Demon's method, we can call it the mission method. After completing a mission, you'll receive a reward for joining. Qianli's method is considered the accumulation method. After accumulating to a certain extent, you'll also get a chance to join. Qianli, when you received your license, did the system let you confirm it? Han family young master asked. Yes, it was just a few days ago, and Gu Fei still hadn't forgotten it. When he went to submit that wanted mission, the NPC did ask him about it. But as for how exactly it asked, Gu Fei really couldn't remember, because he never cared too much about these rules and regulations in the game. Now that he thought about it, perhaps the name of this faction was really mentioned at that time, but Gu Fei really didn't take it seriously. See, this is the truth, Han family young master said. So, to join the Assassin League, there should also be this kind of accumulation method? Unscathed in battle's interest was piqued. For a warrior with slow movements, a wanted mission like killing was really not suitable. Apple vinegar. Gu Fei suddenly mentioned this name. What's wrong? When I received his daily wanted mission, Giordano gave me some information about him. It showed that apple vinegar's PK value is 1642, Gu Fei said. You mean this is also a kind of accumulation? Brother Yu said. Through this accumulation, apple vinegar met the requirements to join the Assassin League, so he is indeed the Assassin League's number one. This deduction is not bad, Han family young master commented. The possibility is very high, the others agreed. I just don't know the exact number, Brother Yu said. He really wanted to interview apple vinegar directly to get to the bottom of this, or else, Brother Yu felt that he wouldn't be able to sleep well for the next few days. This should be higher than Qianli's 300 bounty, Han family young master said. The time it takes is on a completely different level. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a bit more. This should be faster than Qianli's 300 bounty, right? Yutian Shunming and Unscathed in Battle both imagined how many PK they could do in an hour if they cleared out a level 10 newbie training area. I don't think it's possible to do malicious PK. Han family young master saw through their despicable thoughts. I think there will be a certain level requirement for the PK target, for example. It can't be lower than you by 2 levels. Moreover, this thing has to be washed once it's used. So it's possible that the first one to complete the 300 bounty will be the first one, the Sword Ghost said. So that's why Apple Vinegar joined the 2 camps, the other 2 said. Didn't we already analyze that there shouldn't be a 0? But I thought of another possibility. Apple Vinegar encountered the 300 bounty chance to get the bounty license, but different from Qianli, he didn't accept it. This can at least explain Brother Yu's previous doubt. Qianli is number 1. But someone else knew about the existence of the bounty license before him. Han family young master said. That's a great analysis. Brother Yu was excited. His personality was that if he didn't understand what he wanted to know, he would be in so much pain that he wanted to die. That's right, he was the one with the strongest childish curiosity that Han family young master mentioned. At this moment, Han family young master's analysis was very reasonable in explaining one of his doubts. Brother Yu's degree of comfort was no less than when Sword Demon got dual mastery. In that case, it's really Apple Vinegar? Sword Demon said. Logically, after joining the camp, you can use the camp channel in the chat channel. Do you two have it? Han family young master said. There was no camp in the channel's options. Otherwise everyone would have known that this game also had a camp. No, Gu Fei and Sword Demon said after looking at it. It shouldn't be. The veterans were puzzled. Maybe it'll only be activated at level 60? Brother Yu guessed. It seems so. Everyone couldn't think of any other explanation. Butterfly knot. I haven't written it in a long time, it's a bit rusty. This chapter also explains some of the doubts in the book review. Chapter 498. In the process of killing people to clear his PK points, Apple Vinegar was the first to accumulate 300 people on the wanted list. Hence, he realized the wanted camp notification. However, he obviously felt that the camp was boring, so he rejected it. Hence, in the process of killing people, the accumulation of PK points finally allowed him to achieve another breakthrough, meeting the requirements to join the Assassin's League. This was to his liking, so he chose to join the Assassin's League, and became the current number 1. What do you think? Is that what you mean? Brother Yu sorted out the deductions regarding Apple Vinegar and recorded them down. That's right. Han family young master nodded. Wait. That's not right. Gu Fei suddenly spoke again. What is it now? Brother Yu's face was pale. This completely logical deduction made him feel good. At this moment, Brother Yu really didn't want to hear another hard-to-answer question. To him, this was basically torture. When there was too much torture, it was inevitable that people would want to escape. It's like this. Gu Fei said, there are 300 people on the wanted list, which means the mission has been completed at least 300 times. Before that, he would have already received the Windchaser coat of arms as a reward, and it would be at least a level 2 coat of arms. Does this conflict with our hypothesis? Brother Yu asked. Apple Vinegar, I don't think he has a level 2 coat of arms. Gu Fei said. Of course, he had his reasons for saying this, because he had once used the level 2 Windchaser coat of arms to identify Apple Vinegar's cross-leveled dagger. Apple Vinegar's reaction at that time was the basis for Gu Fei's deduction. If Apple Vinegar had the same function as the Windchaser coat of arms, Gu Fei believed that the guy's first deduction would be that his opponent also had a coat of arms, and not be in disbelief. This deduction doesn't make sense. Han family young master said. It's just a reaction at the time, there are too many explanations. He could be surprised that you also have a level 2 coat of arms. The coat of arms has its limitations, and you happen to receive a bounty on him. That's enough of a surprise. Or maybe he likes to act, and wasn't surprised, but pretended to be surprised. Look, there are so many explanations. How can you conclude that he was surprised because he didn't know it had such a function? It wasn't that Gu Fei didn't think of all these possibilities, but for some reason he believed that apple vinegar didn't have a coat of arms. Gu Fei could only shamelessly reply, instinct. Instinct? There's such a thing in this world? Han family's young master turned to ask the others. Ahem. How long are we going to talk about this for? Zhang Wuxiang changed the topic abruptly. It was obvious that he was getting annoyed. Gu Fei shook his head, refusing to comment. It was obvious that he would continue to keep this matter in his heart. Han family young master didn't say anything else, opened a bottle of wine, and left. Brother, you look depressed. Hey, why don't you guys come to a conclusion? Brother, you felt that both of them made sense. Han family young master was as meticulous as ever, and Gu Fei was the only one who had real contact with apple vinegar, after all. Based on his direct impression of a person, he would have some instincts, so it wasn't impossible. Therefore, the two of them insisted on their own opinions, and Brother Yu was caught in the middle, struggling in pain. Seeing that no one was saying anything else, Sword Demon stood up. Seems like there's nothing else? Then I'm going to do the mission? How could Sword Demon not be anxious when he had never experienced a daily faction mission before? Compared to Brother Yu, he didn't care about the result of the discussion. He just wanted it to end quickly. Oh yeah, Sword Demon, you said you have a mission. What kind of daily mission is it? Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shenming came over to ask. It's PK, Sword Demon said, but it's very similar to the mission Qianli described. Gu Fei looked over and saw the Sword Spectre holding a piece of paper that looked like a card. Brother Yu quickly took the piece of paper and raised it before his eyes to read it. Name, Breaking Arrow location, Shady Forest City profession, unknown level, unknown equip, unknown experience, unknown. Why is it all unknown? What kind of information is this? Brother Yu flipped the back of the paper, but there was nothing else. The sword ghoul spread his hands helplessly, took back the piece of paper, and shook it at the NPC Gru. Is there no other information? Collecting information requires a lot of manpower. The current manpower of the Alliance sigh. Gru sighed. Ha, of course it's tight. There are only 2 people. Unscathed in battle laughed. Everyone has the right and obligation to provide information to the Alliance. If you feel that your combat skills aren't enough to take on the heavy responsibility of cleansing evil, then it might be a good choice to start here, Gru said and handed over another piece of paper. As Gru spoke, he handed over another piece of paper. Yaru is in charge of collecting the information you gather and paying you. Sword Demon was stunned. He took back the paper and found that there were coordinates written on it. What does this mean? Sword Demon looked at his companions. It seems to be saying that players can submit information about other players to the faction? As Brother Yu guessed, his face lit up with excitement because this was his strength. He suddenly found that his strength was finally put to use by the system in the game. Let's go take a look at this place, Brother Yu said. Brother Yu, you won't be able to submit anything even if you go, right? This is the right and obligation of the faction players, Yutian Shenming said. Let's go take a look and understand. Brother Yu just wanted to figure things out first. So the group left Gru's cabin, followed the instructions of the coordinates, passed through the forest and entered Sylvan City. Then they walked according to the coordinates, and came to a rare magnificent building in the rural scene of Sylvan City. Library. The few of them looked at each other. The library in the game wasn't just for decoration. When playing the game and suddenly wanted to understand the settings of a certain aspect of the game, going offline to the website was naturally a choice. In addition, everyone could also look up the information they needed in the libraries of the main cities. Of course, it was all in the form of books. As for the communication between players like on the forum, there was naturally no such thing here. The few of them were either veterans who knew all the rules they should know as early as the early days of the game, or newbies like Gu Fei who didn't pay attention to the rules of the game. A place like a library was a territory they had never set foot in before. The Assassin's League is also very ostentatious. They don't just hide in the forest. Yutian Shenming said. Sword Demon looked proud, and was the first to step into the library. Oh, so there are quite a lot of people in this place. The few of them passed through the library corridor and found that there were quite a number of players who came here to look for information. After asking the NPC, they found out that Yaru wasn't hidden at all. He was the librarian of the 5th reference room. When they arrived, they saw an old man with one foot in the grave, wiping books shakily. Hearing the players call, the old man turned around, his eyes cloudy, but when they swept over Sword Demon, his eyes flashed just now. Did you guys see it? Yu Tianxinming shouted. This is a very useful detail. We have to record it. Brother Yu took out a pen and wrote. Forest Shade City Library No. 5 Reference Room Librarian. Old Yaru, Assassin's League Intelligence Collector. When he sees fellow League members, his eyes will flash. Everyone came forward to talk to Yaru. He was only responsible for telling them where to find the books they needed. When Sword Demon walked forward steadily, everyone held their breath and watched attentively. Come on, young man. Let me see what you've brought. As expected, the lines were very different. Brother Yu seemed to have been writing quickly on the paper. He tore it off and stuffed it into Sword Demon's hands. Sword Demon looked down. Brother Yu had filled out a series of his information in the format of the paper in Sword Demon's hands. He gestured for him to hand it over to Yaru. Sword Demon didn't think much and handed it over. Yaru took it. In order to read the paper, he took out a pair of reading glasses from his chest pocket. Oh. Old Yaru nodded. Very good. Keep working hard. With that, he stuffed the paper into his pocket and handed a small bag to Sword Demon. What reward? The others looked at Sword Demon with envy. Experience, money, and faction honor. Sword Demon opened the small bag. Wow. Everyone's eyes were still red. Very little reward. Sword Demon said. Everyone was silent. They knew that Sword Demon was honest. He said very little, not even a number. It was obvious that it was so little that it wasn't worth mentioning. Try again. Brother Yu handed Sword Demon another piece. Sword Demon glanced at it. It was still Brother Yu's own information. However, compared to before, there were some changes. He purposely wrote the level as 30. Sword Demon handed over the paper again. Yaru took it and looked at it again. He sighed and shook his head. He handed the paper back to Sword Demon. Pay attention to the accuracy of the information. Is that so? Brother Yu immediately wrote another one. Try this one. Sword Demon took it and looked at it again. This one was absolutely accurate. In fact, Brother Yu had purposely written some mistakes in the first one. This time, it was all corrected. Oh, is there any new information to update? This time, Yaru gladly accepted the new piece of paper and gave the sword ghost a small pouch. The sword ghost flipped it open. Less than before. I see. Brother Yu nodded. It seems that the system will check the information provided by the players. The first time can tolerate mistakes. After that, the system will decide whether to accept or reject the information based on whether it is correct or wrong. The reward rules have to be tried more to understand. As Brother Yu spoke, he tore off a fourth piece of paper. Here, try this. Sword Demon took it and looked at it. This is too fake. The fourth piece of paper Brother Yu wrote had the name Motherfucker. This was a name that couldn't possibly pass the review. It was obviously someone who didn't exist in the game. Other than that, the profession was made up, the level was exaggerated, and the equipment was drawn. It was a piece of information that couldn't be any more fake. The sword ghost handed it over, and Yaru took it. After looking at it seriously, his face became angry. We want information, not a joke. After saying that, he shook the paper in the wind, and the old man elegantly cut the paper into pieces. Everyone was mesmerized by the skill. Sword Ghost's face was covered in tears, and he held Brother Yu's hand tightly. Brother Yu, don't test it on me anymore. My honor has been deducted. Chapter 499. Oh, my honor was deducted? How many points were deducted? Brother Yu took out a pen and a small notebook and looked at Sword Demon seriously. 50 points, Sword Demon replied. Brother Yu quickly wrote it down and then asked, how many points were awarded just now? The first time was 7 points, the second time was none, and the third time was 2 points, Sword Demon said. This doesn't seem to be logical. Brother Yu frowned as he poked his head with a pin, and seemed to be thinking of something. Sword Demon, where are you going? Suddenly, Gu Fei shouted, and then waved his hand in the air. Pa! Sword Demon, who was in stealth, was slapped out. Brother Yu then noticed that Sword Demon had slipped away from him. Sword Demon cried, I'm leaving. If I continue to be a test subject, I think I'll be kicked out of the camp. Kicked out of the camp? What's the requirement for being kicked out of the camp? How much honor will be deducted? Brother Yu asked. The sword ghoul, who had been through hundreds of battles, had never frowned no matter how difficult the mission or PvP, was now on the verge of tears, almost begging Gu Fei, let me go. Gu Fei quickly retracted his hand, and made a surrender gesture to make way for Sword Demon. Sword Demon disappeared like a wisp of smoke. Kicked out of the camp. I'm leaving too. Without waiting for Brother Yu to finish, Gu Fei had already teleported outside the door. There were only 2 players in the camp. Sword Demon ran away and Brother Yu began to point his spear at Gu Fei. Gu Fei was a bit regretful. If he had known this would happen, he would have stopped Sword Demon. Fortunately, Brother Yu didn't have much speed. Gu Fei rushed out of the door, and didn't see Brother Yu chasing after him. Sir, what are the requirements for being kicked out of the faction? Can you tell me? Brother Yu started pestering Sir Yaru. This guy's crazy, said Unscathed in Battle. Right, let's go. Yutian Shenming said. The rest of them came out as well. Brother Yu didn't get any information from Yaru, so he turned around and started searching through the library. Outside the library, the escaped Sword Demon and Gu Fei sat and squatted on the stone steps by the roadside. Gu Fei tilted his head and looked. The Sword Demon was holding the mission paper that Jelu had given him. I wanted to ask Brother Yu if you have any information on this guy. Sword Demon shook the paper and said regretfully. This paper only had the player's name and location, and then he was asked to assassinate him. This kind of mission was like looking for a needle in a haystack. In fact, although the information on apple vinegar that Gu Fei had received was a few pages long, it only had a name and a main city. Fortunately, Gu Fei was lucky enough to stumble upon it. To be honest, finding someone was much harder than killing someone. The more skilled one was, the more they felt this way. Brother, you can't possibly know everything, Gu Fei said. Why don't you look for your friend here? What's his name again? Deepwater? Deepwater, thank you. Yes, Deepwater. Gu Fei nodded. If there's no other way, that's all we can do. Sword Demon sighed. Gu Fei didn't say anything. From his understanding of Sword Demon in the past, he knew that this guy wouldn't ask for help unless he had no other choice. For example, when he farmed wind-chasing boots in the past, he didn't say anything and just farmed them himself. Looking at Yutian Shenming, who farmed shoes at the same time, he borrowed equipment and did whatever was convenient. It wasn't good or bad. Everyone's personality was different. At this time, the idea of looking for Deepwater was suggested by Gu Fei. Gu Fei felt that this would make it slightly easier for the Sword Demon to accept. What are you two sitting here for? At this time, the other 4 people came out of the library. Seeing the 2 guys squatting by the roadside, the Han family young master asked. I'm going to ask Deepwater about this person. Sword Demon waved the paper. Together? Let's get together. If you want him to help, it's best if you don't let me appear. If you want him to feel better, you can tell him that I'm already dead. Han family young master said. Sword Demon didn't say anything. The relationship between these 2 was sometimes good and sometimes bad. Sword Demon had seen it many times. What about you guys? Sword Demon looked at the others. I'll go do some quests. I've wasted a lot of time running around. Unscathed in Battle had been in high spirits recently. Due to the death of Azurblade, he rose to 2nd place on the warrior leaderboard. He was only 1 step away from the first warrior position he was familiar with. Although he had been running around with the mercenary group recently, the time he could use was very tight. During this busy period, he didn't hope to surpass 1st place. He just hoped to not fall behind. Even so, in a game with such a large group of players, the competition was too fierce. Although Unscathed in Battle worked hard, He was in unfamiliar places recently, which greatly affected his leveling efficiency. In the end, his ranking on the leaderboard still slipped. The others like Yutian Shunming and Han family young master were in a similar situation. The three of them fell 2 places each. They were ranked 4th, 9th and 10th on the warrior leaderboard, archer, and priest leaderboard respectively. Out of the top 10 players, only Sword Demon's position didn't change. It could be seen how much experience he had accumulated. The legendary number 1 player in the game was indeed not on the same level as normal people. Slender Waist Dance was even more amazing than Sword Demon. She never talked about leveling, but her position as number 1 in the world was unshakable. At this time, Unscathed in Battle shouted that he wanted to go level, but she said leisurely, "I'm bored. Let's go shopping." "Shopping? Do you want to accompany me?" Yutian Shunming was excited. "Will you pay for me?" Slender Waist Dance smiled. "Wuxiang, count me in for the quest." Yutian Shunming quickly changed his words. It wasn't that he was stingy and didn't want to spend money to pick up girls. The problem was that the number 1 player in the world with money, if he spent money to pick up girls, Yutian Shunming's brain wasn't flooded with water. The 4 guys left just like that. In the end, only Gu Fei and Sword Demon were left. "I'll accompany you for a walk, then I'll go offline," Gu Fei said. In reality, from a leveling point of view, Gu Fei was the one that made these experts grind their teeth. He only played for a few hours a day, but his level was steadily increasing. His equipment made people drool. Comparing oneself to others was really infuriating. After Sword Demon asked where Water Depth was, he went with Gu Fei. Water Depth wasn't in the city, but in the dense forest outside the city. He was probably leveling up. Sword Demon gradually approached Gu Fei according to the coordinates he said. Suddenly, Gu Fei reached out to stop Sword Demon. "Wait. What? There's murderous intent." Just like how Gu Fei knew about Sword Demon's personality, Sword Demon also knew about Gu Fei's style. Gu Fei nodded and looked around, estimating the number of people that had appeared in that instant. Before he could count, there was a rustling sound in the surrounding bushes and trees. Countless people had already popped their heads out, bows and crossbows in their hands aimed at the 2 of them. They shouted, "Don't move." Gu Fei and Sword Demon suddenly felt as if they had transmigrated to another scene. The players that appeared in this circle were all wearing camouflage, wearing green hats, and their faces were smeared with paint or mud. Sword Demon fiercely pinched his thighs. Was this still a parallel world? Gu Fei reached out with his sword, and was about to teleport to slash people when he suddenly heard someone walk out with a smile. "How is it? How's the situation?" The 2 of them were stunned. Sword Demon tried hard to look at this guy whose face was smeared the same color as his clothes and carefully asked, "Water Depth?" "Haha, even you can't recognize me. This means that this disguise is very successful." Water Depth continued to smile, and walked towards the 2 of them with his hands behind his back. The surrounding players immediately put away their bows and stood at attention. Gu Fei and Sword Demon looked at each other. "What are you guys doing? Field simulation?" Sword Demon asked. He had heard of an activity that could be said to be a real person role-playing CS. It was very similar to what Water Depth and the others were wearing. "Haha, it's a long story. Let's talk about it later." After Water Depth finished laughing, his face suddenly turned cold. "Where's that bastard?" Sword Ghost, of course, knew who he was referring to. Only then did he react. If the young master of the Han clan was here, wouldn't he have already been killed? When did these 2 have such a big grudge? Looking at Water Depth's murderous face, Sword Demon blurted out, "He's dead." "Dead? He's clearly online. How did he die?" Water Depth said. "I hacked him to death." Gu Fei casually added. Water Depth realized that he had died in the game, and was very happy. He patted Gu Fei and said, "Good job, bro." After saying this, he didn't mention the Han family young master anymore and returned to the previous topic. He waved his hand and pointed at his subordinates. "How's our situation?" "Very good," Sword Demon calmly replied. "Luckily you came out in time," Gu Fei said. "Ah." Water Depth was happy. Sword Demon sighed. Seeing Gu Fei sheath his sword, he knew that Water Depth had misunderstood. Gu Fei's meaning was, luckily you came out in time, or else your people would have been hacked to death by me. Water Depth obviously thought that Gu Fei was saying that if it wasn't for Water Depth, he and Sword Demon would have died. Why did you guys do this? Sword Demon asked. It's like this. Recently, there's a new person in our guild. He's been a soldier in real life and worked in the army. He seems to know a lot. He said that the terrain of Shady Forest City is very suitable for jungle warfare. We had nothing to do, so we trained according to his instructions. It's pretty fun. Look, our clothes are all custom made. Water Depth showed off. Green hat too? Only Gu Fei and Sword Demon thought to themselves. The two weren't such unkind people. If the Han family young master was here, these words would definitely slip out. Isn't the city war about to start soon? We should also step up our training. I feel that everyone's PK level in the jungle has improved significantly. Water Depth continued. City war? Gu Fei and Sword Demon didn't understand. How you guys don't know? The guild war for the control of the main city seems to automatically start when the guilds reach a certain size. Water Depth said. Gu Fei and Sword Demon shook their heads. They really didn't know. The 6 members of the child elite group were already outside of the guild. Moreover, they weren't in the main city. Recently, they were busy with the quest from the diary. Even brother, you didn't know about this news. When did this happen? Sword Demon asked. In these 2 days. The system directly released the news to the guild. It hasn't even been released on the official website yet. Water Depth said. Butterfly Knot. New chapter handsome. Adat, you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.